Yan Nanshan's words were very light. They didn't contain any anger, but no one dared to question his determination. Yan Nantian, you're too arrogant. So what if you've gained control of death energy? Your longevity has almost run out, and there's no chance you can restore balance to your life and death energy. If you act so arrogantly, are you not worried your longevity will come to an end and the Martial Heaven Alliance will be destroyed? Shouted one of the ancient race's Nether Passage experts. The Nether Passage realm had 3 realms inside: the Life Realm, the Death Realm, and the Samsara Realm. When Nether Passage experts first broke through to the Nether Passage realm, they would be able to control life and death energy. Their life energy and their death energy would be balanced. This was the realm that ordinary Nether Passage experts were at and was the first step. Once their realm was stabilized, they could proceed with the second step, the Life Realm. They would use their life energy to suppress their death energy. The original proportion of life energy to death energy was 50-50, but to reach the peak of the Life Realm, they had to make the proportion 90-10. Nether Passage experts that had reached the peak of the Life Realm had practically endless life force. Severed limbs could be regrown with barely any effort. However, once their life energy had reached a peak, the next step was the Death Realm. The Death Realm's principles were the same as the Life Realm. The only difference was that it was the death energy that suppressed the life energy. The peak was to have 90% death energy and 10% life energy. The Life Realm wasn't dangerous, but the Death Realm was very terrifying. The stronger a person's death energy grew, the more it exhausted their life energy. Some people would only be able to reach 70% death energy before reaching their limit. If they pushed it, their death energy would exhaust all their longevity and they would die. Many Nether Passage experts were stuck at 70% death energy and unable to continue cultivating. If they continued, it would be no different from suicide. However, Yan Nanshan's attack just now had clearly shown that his death energy had reached the peak of the Death Realm. In other words, he was at the peak of the 3rd step. One more step and he would reach the Samsara Realm. These were the 3 realms in the Nether Passage realm, but the majority of Nether Passage experts were unable to even step into them. They were still stuck on the 1st step, stabilizing their life and death energy. They couldn't even step into the initial life realm without wasting countless years. However, Yan Nantian had already reached the peak of the 3rd step. That was enough to shock countless people. Unfortunately, they also saw that Yan Nanshan's longevity had almost come to an end due to this. It had reached the point that he was no longer able to balance his life energy and death energy. There was no way for him to enter the Samsara realm. That was why they dared to speak up against Yan Nantian. So what if he was so powerful? His longevity was about to run out. If he were to fight, it would quicken that process. It wouldn't be long before he would be dead. At that time, what would his precious disciples and descendants do? Wouldn't they be slaughtered by them? My descendants are happy. I don't need to bother with them. All I, Yan Nantian, wish to do is live out my final days while repaying both gratitude and enmity. In any case, I already have 1 foot in the grave, so I don't need to have any misgivings. If you want to play, I will accompany you. Before people die, they always have to find some things to do, or their lives would have been wasted, don't you think so? Said Yan Nantian lightly. His meaning was obvious. They shouldn't go too far because all he had left was this one life, and he didn't have any misgivings. He would kill them if they made him. If they forced him, he would even kill his way to their nest. In any case, he wouldn't be alive for much longer, so what was there for him to fear? Those experts became gloomy. The most fearsome existences were always those who were unafraid of losing their lives. Yan Nantian was such an existence. Did you hear that clearly? If any disciples in the same generation want to send themselves to their deaths, then they can come to me. If there are any Nether Passage experts though, please go find our Grand Elder. Make sure you queue well and don't go the wrong way. Long Chen immediately started to get arrogant and shout at the Nether Passage experts. Those experts turned green with rage, but there was no way for them to reply. Cursing back to Long Chen was a loss of status for them. Long Chen, you can be arrogant for now, but once we're in the yin-yang world, I will take your life, sneered true immortal Jiaoqi. Hopefully brother Jiaoqi won't kill him immediately. Someone like him should be tortured and have his soul incinerated so that he can never reincarnate. Just wait, Longchen. You should prepare to fall into Brother Jiaoqi's hands so that you can have a quick death. If you fall into my hands, I'll definitely make you regret living in this world. Sneered an ancient race expert. This person was also very powerful. It was unknown what divine ability he cultivated, but his aura was shocking. There was faint starlight in his eyes. The Nether Passage experts were intimidated by Yen Nantian and no longer dared to speak, but their disciples were now pointing their spears at Longchen. Longchen couldn't be bothered to reply. He once more raised a finger on both his hands in a silent counterattack. Those experts were infuriated. They had an urge to charge at him right now. Grand Elder, what does this action of Longchen's mean? Whispered Yilingshan. Although she had roamed the world for many years, she really had never seen this action before. Actually, I don't know either. It should mean he's cursing others. You should just ask Longchen, said Yen Nantian awkwardly. Of course he knew what it meant, but could he really explain such a thing? Junior apprentice sister, don't listen to Grand Elder's nonsense. This has nothing to do with cursing others. The thumb represents number 1, the forefinger represents number 2, and the third finger represents number 3. My meaning is that I'm number 1, and they're not even qualified to be number 2. They can only be third rates. Longchen once more began spouting nonsense with a straight face. That seemed somewhat reasonable, but Yilingshan felt like Longchen was still hiding something based on those people's furious expressions. It was unknown whether those disciples' fury had reached a peak so they couldn't be bothered to look at Longchen any longer, or if it was because their elders told them not to, but eventually those disciples turned away. They closed their eyes and sat in meditation. Seeing those people had stopped talking, Longchen also didn't waste any more saliva on them. He split his attention to communicate with Lei Long. He began to study the lightning paragon art. This paragon art required his essence, qi, and soul to cooperate fully with Lei Long's thunder force. There couldn't be the slightest deviation from the correct process. Any deviation and the least of his worries would be failing to unleash the paragon art. In the worst case, he would be heavily injured or even die. Back when Xiang Yunfei had unleashed his paragon art, the reason he had dared to unleash it was because it was left behind by his ancestors and was being activated with the help of the heavenly bone spears. He had borrowed the power of his ancestors to unleash it. For Longchen, he had to rely on himself. His cooperation with Lei Long had to be perfect. Since he could tell that the yin-yang world was going to be dangerous, he had to increase his power as much as possible. Longchen, you have to be careful of that true immortal Jiaoqi. His talent is exceptional, and he is in possession of 2 bloodlines. Most shocking of all, when his 2 bloodlines mixed, they actually managed to support each other and make each other stronger. His divine abilities are more powerful than others. It would be best if you avoided this person. You have enemies everywhere, so if you are injured in a battle against him, it could be fatal, said Yen Nantian spiritually to Longchen, as well as Yilingshan. Longchen, the Grand Elder is correct. That true immortal Jiaoqi is truly terrifying. Just looking at him makes my hair rise. He's definitely a monster, even more dangerous than Xiang Yunfei, advised Yilingshan. Yilingshan was also an expert and had sharp senses toward danger. After all, she had fought and come out on top in the lowest level of the cultivation world in the central Xian region. Back then, although Xiang Yunfei had given her a great sense of danger at that time, she had yet to take Chu Jianying as her master. She hadn't received her pointers yet, nor had she had a divine sword and a paragon art in her arsenal. She was now much stronger than back then, but when she looked at true immortal Jiaoqi, she felt a chill in her bones. Her sense of danger that had been honed for many years was telling her that he was incredibly dangerous, far surpassing Xiang Yunfei. Back then, Longchen had used up everything in order to defeat Xiang Yunfei. His chances of beating true immortal Jiaoqi were low. Even if Longchen could end up in a draw with him, it was meaningless. Longchen had enemies everywhere, and if injured, he would be hunted and chased down. Don't worry, I will do my best. Grand Elder, if I kill this fellow, will you be able to handle it? Probed Longchen. Yilingshan was shocked. Longchen actually dared to say such a thing. That was too arrogant. Even Yen Nantian was a bit surprised. Seeing how calm Long Chen was, he suddenly understood. He smiled. If you have the ability, then kill as many as you want. No matter what happens, us 4 old fellows will handle it. No matter how many I kill, it will be fine? Long Chen asked again to confirm. Yi Lingshan covered her mouth in shock. She felt like Long Chen had gone crazy. Just, as long as you have justification, we will all support you. Yen Nantian nodded. Alright, then I'm at ease. This time I'll properly play them. I'll teach them that they can't provoke me. Long Chen smiled. There was excitement in his eyes. He would have to properly cause some trouble this time, or it wouldn't have been worth it for the 4 Grand Elders to come out of seclusion. The atmosphere was tense. Although these experts weren't speaking, it was like there were countless sharp blades pointed at Long Chen. Their hostility was clear. Long Chen, are you really not the slightest bit scared? Whispered Yi Lingshan. If she were Long Chen, surrounded by this many powerful enemies who wanted her life, she wouldn't be able to stay calm no matter what. I'm very afraid. Don't you see I'm sitting motionlessly? Said Long Chen. What does being afraid have to do with that? Demanded Yi Lingshan. I've already pissed myself and my but is now frozen to the stone. I can't move. You should back up before it flows over to your side, advised Long Chen. You're disgusting. Yi Lingshan was speechless, but this crude joke of Long Chen's was an answer to her question. Long Chen didn't care about these powerful enemies. Actually, you should have experienced many similar things that I have. I'm already used to it. The majority of my past few years have been either fighting or marching on the path to the next fight. I've already grown numb to it. What's different between the two of us is that you've always been solitary. There are fewer things on your back, so your battles have probably been smaller in scope than mine, said Long Chen. Yi Lingshan nodded slightly. She had always been a solitary figure. She hadn't joined any sects, and she hadn't trusted anyone. Although she had encountered many dangers, she hadn't had that many life and death battles. That was because if she encountered enemies that she couldn't beat, the first thing she would do was run. Long Chen was different. He couldn't retreat when he encountered powerful enemies. Behind him was his family, his brothers, and his lovers. If he retreated, they would die. Yi Lingshan suddenly understood why Long Chen was so strong, and why he possessed such an undefeatable will and belief in himself. It was because he had no path of retreat. All of this had been forced out of him. She also suddenly thought of Chu Jianying. This master of hers cared about her immensely. It was her first time feeling such love. If someone harmed Chu Jianying, Yi Lingshan would definitely put her life on the line to defend her. Thinking of that, Yi Lingshan suddenly felt like her own mental realm had increased. She looked at Long Chen. Yen Nantian smiled faintly, seeming to have noticed the change in Yi Lingshan. This change would allow her to comprehend the meaning of life and death easier. In the future, when breaking through to the Nether Passage realm, her comprehension ability would definitely be exceptional. As for Long Chen, he was a monster, a freak, a demon. Even Yen Nantian was unable to see through him. He was someone both smart and dumb. No one could predict what he would do. Back in Clearwind City, everyone had thought that in that scenario, Long Chen would release DXN. However, despite those old fellows trying to hypnotize him, he had killed DXN. Not even all those Nether Passage experts had been able to save DXN, because no one had really thought that Long Chen would kill DXN. There were too many unknown factors surrounding Long Chen, so the Grand Elders had hesitated to give Long Chen the spot to obtain the Paragon Art inheritance. Why did the Martial Heaven Alliance only have 4 commanders amongst the disciples? Why weren't there more terrifying geniuses? It was because a great deal of the Martial Heaven Alliance's karmic luck was focused on maintaining those 2 ancient heroic spirits. So there hadn't been any supreme geniuses to appear in the alliance. The 4 commanders' actual power hadn't been a match for their status in the alliance. If the Martial Heaven Alliance hadn't focused so much karmic luck on maintaining those ancient heroic spirits, the 4 commanders' accomplishments would have been far greater, and the first commander and second commander wouldn't have died such miserable deaths. This was also one reason for Chu Jianying's grief. Grand Elder, There's one thing that I don't understand. If the yin-yang world is a great danger zone, why is everyone sending people inside? Asked Long Chen. According to reason, people should be avoiding the danger zones as much as possible. Why were so many people treating it as a land of treasure? It's because the yin-yang world is its own world filled with yin and yang energy, as well as life and death energy. It has two sides, a life side and a death side. When the yin-yang world's life energy is at its strongest, people will somehow enter from the yang side. There's no problem with entering then. However, if people enter the yin side, that is a land of absolute death, and entering there would be suicide. The yin-yang world's exterior is covered in mist, it has its own laws, and there is also a sovereign blood seal binding it. It is extremely unstable, and it drifts in and out. To put it in a simple way, while the mist is too dense, while the laws do not permit it, and while the sovereign blood seal has not loosened, entering alone would bring with it a 90% chance of death. Most importantly, once you're in, you'd still have to wait for the yin-yang world to fully open before you could leave. The yin-yang world only fully opens once every few centuries or even millennia. Its opening is random, so that's why it is normally considered a danger zone forbidden to life. It's only a good chance now because it has fully opened. Hearing this explanation, Long Chen finally understood why this danger zone would also be a land of opportunity. Long Chen Lingshan, listen well. In the yin-yang world, unless you have no other choice, do not break through to the life star realm, warned Yen Nantian. My master also said the same thing, but she didn't tell me why, said Yi Lingshan. It's because the yin-yang world's origins are strange. It has its own laws. Only soul transformation disciples are able to enter through its misty shroud, and life star experts would die if they tried to force their way in. Although the yin-yang world looks similar to the martial heaven continent, there were people who once broke through to the life star realm within, only to find that once they returned to the continent, their cultivation bases were unable to advance even the slightest bit. All the way to their deaths, their cultivation bases never advanced again, said Yen Nantian solemnly. What? Long Chen jumped in shock. Yes, it's true. Many people who entered are at the peak of soul transformation, so when they encountered powerful enemies or other dangers, they might have no choice but to make a breakthrough in their cultivation base in order to stay alive. However, those people, without exception, all found that they could no longer increase their cultivation base upon returning to the martial heaven continent. Furthermore, their combat power began to regress. The elders of that time theorized that it's because the yin-yang world has its own independent laws, and when you break through inside, the heavenly Daos of the yin-yang world leave a mark on you, so once you return to the martial heaven continent, you no longer have the martial heaven continent's recognition and are rejected by its heavenly Daos, said Yen Nantian. So an analogy would be like your woman ran over to a man's house and slept in his bed for a few days, and upon returning, you kicked her out? Asked Long Chen. Shameless rogue. Don't be so crass. Cursed Yi Lingshan. Long Chen really didn't have a filter on his mouth to say such a thing in front of her. Yen Nantian nodded. It's a coarse analogy, but it is similar. In any case, just remember that if you break through to the life star realm within it, your cultivation path will be truly severed. Long Chen nodded, but he wasn't worried. He was still a long way away from breaking through. The 9-star Hegemon Body Art's final few heaven stages required an enormous amount of energy to break through. Hua Long was refining pills all day, but based on Long Chen's estimate, he was still far from having enough. Actually, this benefited Long Chen. Originally, he had been worried about some people breaking through to the life star realm upon entering the yin-yang world to take advantage of him still being stuck in the soul transformation realm. With this, his confidence grew. He even had an urge to go over and slap these people. Within the yin-yang world, the yin side is filled with demonic beasts. Some are even remnants from the immortal era. Those are terrifying existences, so be careful. Other than the demonic beasts, there might be some immortal caves with inheritances or priceless treasures inside from foreign worlds, but those are also filled with dangers. You might lose your life. The other thing to note is to not enter the yin side. There are very powerful death spirit race experts in it. If you startle them, you will be doomed. However, the death spirit race is unable to enter the yang side, so they aren't too dangerous. I hope that the two of you will stick together and look after each other, said Yan Nantian. No, we can't. I should tell you that if Yi Lingshan was on her own, it would be dangerous. But if she were with me, it would be even more dangerous for her. I'm already prepared. When I go in, I won't bother searching for treasures. I'll just kill people and take their treasures. In any case, many people will just send themselves to me. If Yi Lingshan is on her own, she'll be much safer, said Long Chen hastily. With his bad luck, he estimated that the two of them would end up finding nothing and most likely end up being hunted down. Furthermore, he had many enemies, and if Yi Lingshan was with him, ignoring the danger, she wouldn't even have time to go search for treasures. She would be fighting all day. It was better if it was just him. This is true. That's fine. You can make your own preparations. If you are able to, it would be best if you are able to find some things that extend a person's longevity, said Yan Nantian. Long Chen nodded, understanding what he was saying. The Grand Elder's longevity was running out, and they wouldn't be able to last much longer. If they were gone, the Martial Heaven Alliance would lose one of their greatest supports. If both of them could find some treasures, perhaps the four of them would be able to persevere for longer. If they could hold on until Long Chen managed to reach the peak, the Martial Heaven Alliance wouldn't end up short on manpower. As Yan Nantian was discussing things with Long Chen and Yi Lingshan, more and more Nether Passage experts began to arrive with their disciples. When they saw Long Chen, they were all astonished. They hadn't expected that the Xian beasts, ancient races, and the people from the Martial Heaven Alliance would be able to sit in silence together. Of course, there were also a few experts who came from righteous sections. They went over to greet Yan Nantian, but they had their disciples maintain a certain distance from Long Chen. Most likely, they were afraid of others noticing them being too close to Long Chen. Suddenly, a woman walked over from the distance. She was like a fairy who had descended to the mortal world. She was graceful and elegant. When Long Chen saw her, a complicated expression appeared on his face. Her robes were snow white, and her figure swayed gently. Like a fairy walking in the mortal world, she drew the gazes of everyone. She was a peerless beauty. Her gemstone-like eyes swept over the crowd. When she saw Long Chen, a complicated emotion appeared in her tender eyes. This woman was the #1 genius of the junior generation of the elusive music immortal palace, Ziyan. Her arrival caused every single man to involuntarily feel ashamed of their own inferiority. As for Yi Lingshan, although she was also a top beauty, she was eclipsed by Ziyan. Ziyan looked at Long Chen, and Long Chen looked at Ziyan. He sighed inside. His relationship with her was complicated. There was both enmity and gratitude between the two of them. The entire continent knew what had transpired between them. The elusive music immortal palace had sent Shin Bijuan to kill Long Chen, and the results were that the current palace master almost lost her position. She had to punish herself as an apology to the world for her actions. Shin Bijuan had died to Long Chen, and the palace master had also punished herself because of this. Although the elusive music immortal palace hadn't reached the point of being like water and fire with Long Chen, they could already count as enemies. Back when Ziyan had tried to stop Long Chen from killing his enemies in the Grand Han Ancient Nation, she had lost. The elusive music immortal palace had then spread the word that she had held back due to her feelings. That was because they didn't want the world to think that Ziyan wasn't as strong as Long Chen, but that she just hadn't wanted to kill him. This news had shaken countless experts and made countless men crazily jealous of Long Chen. In that kind of scenario, Ziyan had actually rather die to Long Chen than kill him. Her feelings toward him were clear. Countless men could die of jealousy from this. If Ziyan expressed the slightest good opinion to any man, it was unknown just how many people would be willing to sacrifice their lives for her. However, Long Chen had actually refused Ziyan, making countless people feel like Ziyan's feelings were unworthy of him. Yi Lingshan had previously heard that Ziyan was a fairy that would make any woman feel ashamed of themselves upon seeing her. Today, she learned what a peerless beauty was. Ziyan's charm didn't just stem from her looks. She possessed a certain air that was difficult to describe. There was immortal spiritual chi around her, and it was like she was a transcendent being. It was like just looking at her was a blasphemy. Ziyan's arrival caused the heavenly geniuses that had been sitting to shoot to their feet. They felt like sitting before her was an insult. Their eyes were filled with adoration and worship. This was Ziyan's specific charm. The elusive music immortal palace's disciples all possessed an ability to get closer to the heavenly Taos. Their natural air made it so others had difficulty forming any hostility or other bad feelings toward them. This was also another reason why Shinbijuan's zither music had been able to control the southern Xian region's geniuses so easily. It was because their hearts had already been subdued by her specific air. Ziyan was much more beautiful than Shinbijuan. As soon as she arrived, let alone the men, even the women greatly admired her. "Brother Long, you're as valiant as ever." Ziyan bowed slightly to Long Chen. Her voice was like immortal music. However, it made him feel sour. Her voice clearly contained a certain distant feeling to him. Perhaps this was what Long Chen had wanted, but now that it really happened, that feeling of disappointment was something only Long Chen could understand. "Many thanks." In the end, Long Chen could only reply with a standard courteous reply. His relationship with Ziyan was practically a melodramatic play. None of his skills could help him here. "You should be careful." The power of her 7-string C-suppressing zither had increased to a new level. "It seems part of its seal has been broken," warned Evil Moon. In truth, there was no need for Evil Moon's warning. Long Chen also sensed that Ziyan was different from before. She possessed something on her that gave him a feeling of great danger. "Brother Long, I've recently learned a new song that I want you to hear. Are you interested in hearing it?" After a moment's hesitation, Ziyan asked Long Chen a question. Long Chen looked at her crystal-clear eyes. It was several breaths later that he shook his head. "You shouldn't waste your music on me. It would be like playing music for a bull. I'm a stubborn coarse man. Everyone's Taos are different, and although it's said that all Taos lead to the same place, the paths are all different. I respect your Tao, and I hope you can respect mine as well. Gods, devils, immortals, ghosts, there are many different Taos, but who is right or wrong, who is higher or lower, there is no criterion to judge them. Man is not a fish and cannot know the fish's life." Although Long Chen and Ziyan hadn't been together for a long time, they had disclosed their hearts in the Grand Xia. Long Chen understood Ziyan's heart, which was why he felt so powerless. Both he and Ziyan were very opinionated and strongly believed in their own views of the world. No one could rattle their beliefs. Ziyan had always thought that Long Chen was a devil in need of saving. She did it out of the kindness of her heart, but Long Chen never thought of himself as a devil. It was the opposite. He felt he was kinder than the absolute majority of people. Ziyan had been influenced by the elusive music immortal palace from her youth. She had her own worldview built around there. As for Long Chen, he had his own worldview. He viewed the world from the bottom rungs, while Ziyan was standing at the peak. Their viewpoints were completely different, and the worlds they saw were also completely different. In Ziyan's eyes, this world was beautiful, but what Long Chen saw was always the bloody and cruel side. This resulted in two different worldviews, so it was fated that the two of them could not end up together. Furthermore, he knew that Ziyan had not given up and was planning on trying again with this song. She would do everything she could to get Long Chen to mend his ways. Long Chen didn't want to disappoint her again, so he decided not to listen to her song. However, Ziyan couldn't help being disappointed after being refused by Long Chen. "I'm sad I won't get to receive your pointers again, even regretful. However, that expression you brought up, man is not a fish and cannot know the fish's life, I disagree with it. The fish is in the water only due to its current circumstances. It cannot grow wings and cannot go ashore. It is powerless to do anything, so it can only peacefully live its life. But the turtle can come ashore to live its life. The crocodile lives on both land and water. They were not satisfied with living in the water and braved the unknown. The Kuan dominated the water, but it willed itself to fly through the sky, and so there is the story of the Kunping breaking through the heavens and its restrictions. Didn't they do this to change their viewpoint and to see another side of the world? You are stubbornly clinging to your narrow view of the world. If you could open your heart, the path to immortality and divinity would be wide open for you. Ziyan's voice quivered ever so slightly. She was clearly too emotional to keep her voice calm. Everyone could tell that she still cared about Longchen. True immortal Jiaoqi and the other disciples' expressions changed. Their gazes were filled with jealousy as they stared daggers at Longchen. They wished to crush him right here and now. Just how was his luck so good? Why didn't Fairy Ziyan look at them like this? Longchen looked at Ziyan. Her flawless face was slightly rosy, like a peach blossom in bloom. He had no way to reply to this beauty's emotions. He also couldn't accept her principles. When Ziyan had roamed the world, she had always been carrying her status as heir to the elusive music immortal palace. Who would dare to be rude to her? Everything she saw was what others showed her. Hence, she thought that what she saw was a beautiful world. As for Longchen, he had seen people's twisted sides or perhaps reality. This was a world where the strong were respected, where the weak were prey. Ziyan was born an expert. Everything she saw was beautiful, but Longchen's world was filled with blood. Ziyan was using her own yardstick to judge the world and judge Longchen's world. That was fundamentally a mistake. It was the same world, but their viewpoints were completely different, so the worlds they saw were different. Longchen had tried to communicate with Ziyan several times, but he was always disappointed. Her worldview had deep roots and could not be shaken. As for himself, there was no way he could change his worldview for Ziyan. Perhaps if he didn't have deep bloody enmities with others, perhaps if he didn't have a group of lovers, a group of hot-blooded brothers, perhaps for someone who deeply loved him, he could try to change himself. However, he couldn't now, and he couldn't in the future. So he was silent in the face of Ziyan's questioning. Longchen, Fairy Ziyan is doing her best to enlighten you, a devil. Hopefully you can sincerely repent and turn over a new leaf, but seeing you expressionless in the face of her emotional plea, it seems you're fully entrenched in the devil Dao and cannot be saved, sneered an expert from the ancient races, his voice full of jealousy and disdain. Longchen smiled faintly. To Ziyan he said, "Do you see? This is the difference between us. When you speak, others immediately agree. But before I even speak, others will target me. You are constantly standing beneath the sun, seeing the world full of light. I am standing in a dark shadowy corner. Although I can see the sunlight, I can't feel its warmth. The only things that can make me feel warm in this world are my family, my lovers, and my brothers. I need them and they also need me. We will live and die together. We don't need other people's pity, nor do we need other people to give us their sunlight." Perhaps others didn't feel much from Longchen's words, but they formed a resonance with Yi Lingshan. She had always thought that others couldn't understand her view of the world, but now she found that she and Longchen were the same. "Longchen, you're too extreme. You should try to open your inner heart and accept this world's sunlight. It's selfless. It can't be that you will hate this world as you intentionally stand where the sunlight can't reach you." Ziyan looked at Longchen with pity. She knew what Longchen had experienced, and she knew that if he continued like this, he would sooner or later become a true devil king. She wanted to change that fate. "I don't hate this world. It's the opposite. I love this world and am grateful for it. This world has many kind people and those worthy of my respect. This world is beautiful, but it is definitely not perfect. Fairy Ziyan, it should be noted that you are living your life, while I am busy surviving. In your position, you don't need to worry if you'll have food to eat, a roof over your head, or clothes on your back. You don't need to worry about gathering cultivation resources or your safety. That's really living. As for me, I am stuck in the center of a constant struggle, with idiots constantly pestering me. They might come at me to try taking my life at any time. They are fiends to me but respectful to you. They are the same people, but they have a double standard. That's why you don't need to waste any more effort. I understand your heart, but unfortunately, you will never understand mine. All I ask you to remember is that everything you see is just what people want you to see. You see the leaf that others put in front of you, blinding you from the mountain behind. The reality of this world is far crueler and bloodier than you think. Long Chen shook his head as he looked at Ziyan. He understood that Ziyan was doing this out of kindness toward him, but she had been brainwashed by the elusive music immortal palace since her childhood. Some things were deeply imprinted in her brain and could not be changed. He knew that no matter how high his cultivation base grew, he wouldn't be able to change her thinking. Perhaps she was right and the two of them were simply fated to be enemies. It was an unchangeable destiny. Longchen, you fiend, Fairy Ziyan is trying to guide you to the right path, and you spout such arrogance to hurt her. You really are worse than a beast, scolded one of the righteous path's disciples. Despite both being from the righteous path, it was unknown just how many disciples looked down on Longchen, viewing him as having nothing more than dog's hit luck. They thought that if they were that lucky, they would definitely be stronger. That was especially true when they saw his words cause tears to fill Ziyan's eyes. That disappointed expression provoked their desire to protect her, and they immediately pointed their spears at Longchen. Yes, I really am worse than you, sighed Longchen. This reply first dumbfounded people before they quickly realized that he was cursing them as beasts. Longchen, do we really need to fight to the point of you die or I die? Life in this world should comply with the heavenly Taos. Whether you're living or surviving, it's the same thing. We can all grow under the protection of the heavenly Taos. Look at the sovereigns. Which one of them walked to the peak by being merciless and vicious? Which one of them relied on slaughter to solve their problems? Bloody methods only intensify the conflict, said Ziyan. Long Chen's expression changed slightly. He thought of the crux of the problem. The sovereigns had been respected by all races, not just because of their power, but because of their wisdom and magnanimity. This was something that he knew as well. There were many legends regarding the sovereigns, and although some of those stories might have been embellished, it was true that only the sovereigns had been able to obtain the approval of all races. He thought of when he had encountered Sovereign Yunshang. At that time, Sovereign Yunshang had been wearing white robes and had seemed a bit surprised to see him wearing black. However, the sovereign had then said that Long Chen walked a different path from them. Now that Ziyan brought up the sovereigns, he seemed to understand something. Ziyan, there's no need to say any more. You are right, but I am also not wrong. Neither of us will give up our way of thinking, so don't try any longer. The more you try, the more it will hurt. Your so-called heavenly Taos are nothing more than a joke. They also treat people according to different standards. Kind people always end up bullied, while evil people go unpunished. As for the cycle of karma, I'm too impatient to wait for karma to punish them. I remember enmities, and anyone who tries to kill me or harm my people will not be let off. I am not so magnanimous. I do not have that skill, or that self-restraint, or that interest in being a good person. What I need to do is protect the people beside me. As for how others view me, their hostility toward me, whatever. After saying this, Long Chen turned away, no longer acknowledging Ziyan. This was an argument with no solution. Saying any more was meaningless. However, there was one thing that he didn't understand, and it was the role of elusive music immortal palace in the martial heaven continent. They claimed to be the protectors of the continent, but their true origins were a mystery. No one knew. Ziyan saw Long Chen turn away, clearly not wishing to continue this conversation. Then, she lowered her head and sadly walked away to find her own corner to sit down in. Waves of divine light came out of her, screening her from the other people's sight. She didn't want others to see her like this. It was unknown whether she was furiously venting behind her curtain of light, or whether she was silently sobbing. Long Chen knew that Ziyan was hurt right now. He didn't feel good either, but this reality made him helpless. He really hated those people who brainwashed others. They were a bunch of conmen. The corrupt path and Bloodkill Hall were like that. After their brainwashing, their faith would become so solid that it made their people frightening. When a person thought that there was only one correct answer to something, and all other answers were worthy of death, that meant there was a problem with that person's cognitive abilities. One person might see a sapling and be correct in that, but if an ant looked at it, they would see a towering tree. Their responses would naturally be different. If you thought that your answer was the only correct one and you had to force that ant to accept your answer, then that was bigotry. And bigoted thinking was frightening. All things had two sides. How could there be an absolute correct answer? If a thief was caught, people would want to beat him to death. But what if he stole a few pieces of bread to save his starving mother on her last breaths? Then you would need to view this problem from multiple angles. Standing in the position of the thief, the spectator, the person who was stolen from, or the thief's mother, that was 4 viewpoints already, for different answers. However, brainwashed people did not see 4 different answers. They only had one answer, and if others did not have the same answer, they would criticize and condemn them, forcibly educating them to the correct answer. If you refused, they would raise their butcher's blades. The reason Long Chen didn't dare to rapidly increase his cultivation base was because he was afraid of one day becoming a crazy person due to the 9-star hegemon body art's influence. He had to make sure he could always see himself clearly. As for Ziyen, the only things in her mind were the teachings of the elusive music immortal palace. She was like an empress standing on the city gates, looking at starving commoners eating tree bark just to stay alive and then curiously asking why they didn't eat meat. Long Chen's eloquence wouldn't lose to anyone, but he was profoundly helpless when it came to Ziyen. He had no time nor energy to fight with her like this. So in the end, one of them would very likely fall. Ziyen was heartbroken, but Long Chen was also distressed. Ziyen knew that there was no way for her to change Long Chen, but she continued to try, fighting for the slightest hope. In comparison, Long Chen felt a bit ashamed of how he had given up. Ziyen was still fighting for him, but he didn't have the time. He was in a race against time. Anything that blocked his way might come with a great price in the future. He couldn't hold back just for Ziyen. One of the ancient race experts took this chance to speak. "What a despicable man you are, Long Chen. How dare you hurt Fairy Ziyen like this? Just wait until we enter the Yin-Yang world, I will personally kill you to avenge Fairy Dash. Then let's not wait." Long Chen's figure suddenly flashed forward. He charged at that ancient race expert. No one had expected Long Chen to suddenly attack. He arrived in front of that expert in an instant. However, that person was also an expert, and he didn't panic. He had no time to summon his manifestation, but a pair of runic wings appeared behind him. He smashed a fist at Long Chen, while his runic wings also slammed toward his head. This was a 2-prong attack, simple but vicious. When Long Chen's fist met his fist, his wings would slam into Long Chen's head. If Long Chen tried to block the wings, he would have to endure the punch. If he focused on the punch, his wings would shatter his head. The wings were one of the ancient race expert's divine abilities. However, Long Chen ignored the pair of runic wings. His fist continued to smash into that ancient race expert's fist. The ancient race expert was surprised. He had expected Long Chen to retreat and block his wings. Long Chen's most likely course of action would be to launch a kick at his opponent's abdomen to escape his current predicament. That would naturally cause Long Chen to fall into a trap. The ancient race expert had a chain of backup moves that would even give him a chance to kill Long Chen if he acted as expected. However, Long Chen was acting very foolishly by charging in a suicidal manner, causing this expert to be a bit panicked. If it was anyone else, he would be confident in killing them. But it was Long Chen. This seemingly foolish act of his made him feel very uneasy. By this point, there was nothing else he could do. He could only circulate all his power. Just as Long Chen's fist was about to strike, he spread his fingers, turning his fist into a claw that caught his opponent's fist. At that moment, the 2 runic wings slammed toward Long Chen's head. However, just as they were about to strike, lightning flashed. The 2 wings shattered. With his right hand clenching and pulling on the ancient race expert's fist, his left hand smashed into the ancient race expert's nose. Long Chen's fist smashed into that ancient race expert's nose. The immense force caused his head to cave in. A pair of lightning wings flashed on Long Chen's back. It was these lightning wings that had blown apart the ancient race expert's runic wings. When he saw those lightning wings, Yan Nanshan's expression changed. So Long Chen had gained control of this rudimentary form of a paragon art so quickly. These lightning wings were the paragon art, the sundering lightning heavenly wings. It was just that right now, Long Chen was relying entirely on Lei Long to unleash this technique. He was still unable to cooperate with Lei Long to unleash the move, so its power was very limited. It was still in a rudimentary form. Despite that, it was enough to instantly destroy this ancient race expert's divine ability. However, because it had only appeared for an instant, it hadn't unleashed the fluctuations of a paragon art, so others weren't able to realize what it was. Only Yan Nantian had noticed the power of this move, and he was stunned by its power. If Long Chen grasped the complete form of this paragon art, he might be able to dominate these geniuses. Long Chen, you are courting death. Seeing Long Chen heavily injure his disciple and then grab him by the neck, the Nether Passage elder that had come with this ancient race disciple immediately shot to his feet. However, he had just moved when a sharp ray of sword chi slashed over. That Nether Passage expert coughed up blood and hastily retreated. I previously said that anyone in the same realm can challenge Long Chen. But if Nether Passage experts want to attack, don't blame me for not being courteous. Have you forgotten already? Yan Nantian looked at these experts coldly, appearing cold yet domineering. There was frosty killing intent in his eyes. Yi Lingshan looked in shock at Yan Nantian. This time, he hadn't used her sword. He had merely waved 2 fingers but had still been able to use them as a sword and injure a Nether Passage expert. Yan Nanshan's attack once more shook everyone. They were experiencing the terrifying power of someone at the peak of the death realm. None of them could stop him. Long Chen, do you want? Gasped that ancient race disciple in his hand. His body suddenly exploded. Not even his Yuan spirit was spared. Long Chen's hand was bloody, and his gaze was cold. It's not what I want, but what do you want? I was too lazy to deal with you just now, but you still forced me like this. Since that's the case, let's not bother with anything fancy. There's no need to enter the yin-yang world. Anyone who wants to kill me can come challenge me right now. Let us fight to the death right here and see who is left standing in the end. Long Chen was feeling vexed due to his complicated relationship with Ziyan. Hence, when someone actually added oil to the fire, his temper naturally couldn't endure it. Since you want to die, all right. True immortal Jiaoqi was the first to step forward. His copper eyes stared at Long Chen. Popping sounds began to ring out of his skeleton. Boom. Just at this moment, explosive rumbling came from the air. The mist over the distant mountains had become thin, and a surge of life energy surged out of the yin-yang world. We can enter. A Nether Passage expert formed hand seals, summoning life and death energy that formed a channel through the mist. He then tossed his disciple inside. Count yourself lucky. But just wait, I will definitely cut off your head in the yin-yang world, said true immortal Jiaoqi before entering the life and death channel created by his Xian Beast Elder. There were actually over 10 more days until the yin-yang world was fully open. At this time, the mist had yet to scatter, so it should be impossible to enter. However, Nether Passage experts were capable of creating a channel with their life and death energy so that soul transformation experts could enter. This way, these disciples would have a 10-day head start into the yin-yang world. That would give them an advantage over the other disciples. However, creating a channel capable of getting through this mist exhausted a great deal of life and death energy. Ordinary Nether Passage experts were only able to send a single person in. Stronger ones would be able to just barely send 2 in. Any more would be too much. Long Chen, just wait. You will definitely die a miserable death in the yin-yang world. A few more of the heavenly geniuses added in their shouts before charging into the yin-yang world. Yi Lingshan pulled Long Chen into their channel. Although they moved second, they were even faster than the others. Originally, true immortal Jiaoqi was the fastest, but Long Chen and Yi Lingshan quickly overtook them. That wasn't because they were rushing, but because Yan Nanshan's life and death energy was superior to the others, allowing the 2 of them to be the first to enter the yin-yang world. The 2 of them charged through the mist, vanishing from sight. Just a moment later, true immortal Jiaoqi also entered the yin-yang world. The others quickly followed, vanishing one by one. Only once the majority of people had entered did Ziyan put away her curtain of light. Although her face was now calm, her eyes were slightly red. She had clearly been crying. Little girl, come over here. Yannan Tian beckoned to Ziyan. Ziyan greets Senior. Ziyan respectfully walked over and bowed. I can send you in. If you enter yourself, it will take quite a bit of your spiritual yuan. That's a dangerous condition to be in while in the yin-yang world, said Yannan Tian. Enter herself? The experts in the surroundings were startled. Ziyan was able to enter the yin-yang world on her own? Many thanks for your kindness, but I can protect myself. Ziyan expressed her gratitude, but she declined. Yannan Tian did not get angry at being refused. He amicably said, there is no absolute right or wrong in this world. You put in so much bitter effort for Longchen because you think you are saving him, but in reality, you've only made more enemies for him. You've made others grow jealous, and from jealousy is born hate. You've given them another reason to kill him. Senior, don't explain yourself for now. I know you had kind intentions, and Longchen knows this as well. Everyone knows that you did this out of the kindness of your heart. However, if kindness is used in the wrong place, it becomes a bad thing. This is also what I mean when I say that there is no absolute right or wrong. Whether something is right or wrong, true or false, depends on a person's viewpoint. If you want to accurately judge this world, you need to use multiple yardsticks to measure it. If you can switch to a different status and experience another person's life, you'll experience things from a different viewpoint. Perhaps, you will have unexpected gains. Ziyan looked at Yannan Tian with gratitude. She once more respectfully bowed. Many thanks for your pointers. Wah, who do I see here? Why, it's Fairy Ziyan. I'm honored. Suddenly, a voice rang out. A tall man wearing a cloak and a mask on his face walked over. He looked at Ziyan enthusiastically. Sir, you are? Ziyan looked at this man curiously. Divine runes were flowing around his mask that made it impossible for others to see his true face. Just seeing his eyes, she didn't find him familiar at all. Fairy Ziyan, have you forgotten me so quickly? Tihoff, this isn't a good place to speak. But you do know me. We met in the Eastern Wasteland, and I've even heard your music before. Urged that man. Sorry, I really don't remember you. Ziyan shook her head apologetically. What the? Is the only one you remember from the Eastern Wasteland Longchen? That's very hurtful. That man lowered his head sadly. Sorry, I still have things to do, so I'll take my leave first. Ziyan looked at him for a long time before confirming she really didn't know him. Ziyan lightly pressed a hand against the air. It was like a zither was present in the air, and the world was split open, forming a narrow channel for her. In front of everyone's dumbfounded gazes, Ziyan gracefully walked into that narrow channel and vanished from sight. When she vanished, the split-open world returned to normal as if nothing had happened. However, that sight deeply shook people's minds. My word, Fairy Ziyan has gained the approval of the 7-string C suppressing zither. She can communicate with the world spiritually, using the very heavens as her strings, exclaimed a nether passage expert. Was she really a soul transformation disciple? This kind of power was enough to annihilate nether passage experts. Many people felt thankful that Longchen had been so stupid as to refuse Ziyan's kindness. If he ended up with Ziyan, no one would be able to do anything to him. The elusive music Immortal Palace's disciples' strongest point wasn't their combat power, but their ability to commune with the heavenly Daos. Whoever could dual cultivate with her would never have a bottleneck in their lifetime. When Ziyan had said that if Longchen would agree to change his ways, the path to immortality or divinity would be wide and open for him, it had clearly expressed her determination and her heart. However, Longchen had declined this lure that would drive others crazy. That bastard Longchen, how am I supposed to live this down? Beautiful women only recognize you and not me. How am I any inferior to you? Cursed the man once Ziyan left. Everyone looked at this person curiously. His voice was very young. However, wearing a cloak and mask out in the open was a bit out of place. Brother, do you have any enmity with Longchen? Probed an expert from the Ancient Family Alliance. The mysterious man looked at that nether passage expert and suddenly slapped him across the face, cursing, "Who the fuck are you calling brother?" That nether passage expert of the ancient family alliance kindly stepped forward to strike up a conversation, only to receive a sudden slap in the face. Bastard! The nether passage expert was enraged. He was just about to kill this man when he suddenly smelled the scent of rot. His face began to hurt and itch at the same time. When the experts around him saw his face, they all let out startled cries. That nether passage expert's face was starting to rapidly decay. This is death energy. That's impossible. This man might be masked, but he didn't look to be over 30. How was it possible to advance to the nether passage realm at such a young age? How could he control such pure death energy? The nether passage expert who had been slapped had chunks of his face slowly fall. He couldn't even stop it. His skull was quickly exposed. The corrosive energy was then starting to fade. However, before he could fully erase it, he would have to keep this frightening appearance. "Just who are you?" shouted the nether passage expert. This kind of pure death energy was something that of all the people present, only Yen Nantian could possess. No one could have expected that such a young and terrifying nether passage expert had appeared in this world. Yen Nantian looked at the masked man and sank into thoughtful silence. He silently smiled. Now he knew why this masked man's death energy was so strange. "Who am I? Do you think you're qualified to ask? If I wanted to, other than this senior from the Martial Heaven Alliance, all of you would be crushed," sneered the masked man. The death energy surrounding his body grew denser and stronger, shocking everyone. They hastily retreated. This death energy actually possessed a powerful corrosive power, forming its own death domain that even nether passage experts didn't dare to get close to. This death domain possessed a corrosive aura that was very strange. They didn't want to touch it. "Little fellow, I don't mind telling you that the death energy on your face isn't as simple as you think. It has imprinted onto your skull. If you look carefully, you'll find that your longevity is currently wasting away," said the masked man indifferently. That nether passage expert immediately sensed it carefully, and his expression completely changed. He was shocked to find that his longevity was truly shrinking. Although the process was very slow, it still terrified him. The masked man continued, "This is just the start. This death poison has branded your skeleton. In 3 days, the poison will erupt like a volcano. At that time, you'll be losing a year of your life with each breath you take until you're dead. So, do you still think you're qualified to call me brother?" The nether passage expert from the ancient family alliance looked at the masked man uneasily. The other experts were also intimidated, afraid that the masked man would set his sights on them. That death energy was something nether passage experts in the life realm couldn't resist. "Senior, I was rude to you. I hope you won't find trouble for this junior." The ancient family alliance's nether passage expert lowered his head and begged. The masked man smiled and nodded. "In all my years of roaming the continent, that was the first time someone dared to call himself my brother. The youngsters these days are all rude. Well, due to your youth, I won't be too hard on you. I'll give you a chance to make up for this. Open the life and death channel for me to the Yin-Yang world, then I'll accept your apology." "But, senior? That's the Yin-Yang world. Do you think my realm is something a child like you can comprehend? That Yin-Yang world is just a fart in my eyes. I can come and go as I please. Are you opening the gate or not? If not, just wait for your longevity to dry up." The masked man snorted and turned to walk into the Yin-Yang world himself. His words shocked everyone. The Yin-Yang world was its own unique world. Only soul transformation disciples could enter, and life star experts and above would be annihilated by its laws. No matter how strong a person was, they were still nothing in front of a whole world's power. But this masked man still dared to enter the Yin-Yang world. Yen Nantian smiled faintly. He didn't say a word, but inside he was thinking that the youngsters these days really knew how to play. "Senior, please wait. Junior will immediately open the gate." That nether passage of the ancient family alliance clenched his teeth. Life and death energy surged out of him, and a channel opened in the air. The channel had just formed when he began to sweat. He had already exhausted most of his energy opening the channel for his disciple. Hence, opening it again was incredibly taxing, But he had no choice if he wanted to live. Count yourself sensible. The masked man jumped into the channel. Senior, can you please go faster? I can't hold on. The Nether Passage expert's aura was growing unsteady. Useless thing, you can't even do something so insignificant? Scolded the masked man, but he quickened his steps. He quickly reached the end of the channel and was right in front of the mist. One more step and he would enter the yin-yang world. Everyone was holding their breath. If the masked man could enter, then perhaps there was hope that they could also enter. They were starting to wonder if the laws of the yin-yang world had changed without anyone noticing. They saw that the masked man was standing right in front of the mist, but the mist was still completely steady. There were no intense fluctuations. At this time, the masked man turned back to the Ancient Family Alliance's Nether Passage expert. I keep my word. I'll tell you the way to cure your face right now. Many thanks, Senior, cried that Nether Passage expert. All you need to do is see my face and the poison will be cured. Look closely. The masked man slowly took off his mask, revealing a young and handsome face with a slight double chin. His face still had a bit of baby fat to it, and normally, this kind of face was quite kind and nice. However, now it was covered with a wretched expression. Emon Yen. When the mask fell, that Nether Passage expert's eyes opened wide. Blood almost poured out of his eyes, and he clenched his teeth furiously. Not bad. After traveling far and wide and excavating countless tombs, I've finally gained some recognition. Little fellow, many thanks for your effort. I'll leave first, but because you're so obedient, I won't rob your ancestral tomb. Emon Yen laughed magnanimously. Fuck your mother, you robbed my family's ancestral tomb a year ago, roared the Nether Passage expert. Oh, is that so? I've excavated countless tombs, so I can't remember them all. That's fine, then I promise not to excavate your ancestral tomb a second time. Alright, goodbye. Emon Yen stepped into the mist, vanishing from sight. Although that Nether Passage expert had immediately dispelled his channel upon realizing it was Emon Yen, the gate that was stuck onto the mist still stayed for a few seconds before vanishing. Most hateful of all, this mist was condensed by the laws of the yin-yang world, so he didn't dare to attack it. If the yin-yang world counterattacked, he would be annihilated. The Nether Passage expert coughed up a mouthful of blood, almost fainting. At this moment, he realized that his face had recovered. After thinking about it for a moment, he realized that Emon Yen's death energy was not the death energy that Nether Passage experts controlled. He had been fooled. This kind of energy came from ancient tombs. It was a corrosive death poison that had infected Emon Yen after staying in tombs for too long. After a long time, he had managed to learn how to control this kind of sinister power. This kind of energy was fundamentally different from a Nether Passage expert's death energy. One was a law, while the other was a kind of poisonous chi. If he had been calm, he would have noticed the clues. However, this bastard Emon Yen's acting had been too good, duping him and everyone else. Thinking of how he had actually called Emon Yen Sr., bowed to him, and even opened the channel for him, he almost exploded in anger. Most hateful of all, Emon Yen had once dug up his ancestral tomb. Of everyone present, only Yen Nantian had seen the clues and guessed Emon Yen's identity. That dense death air was something only Emon Yen, who had spent a great deal of time frequenting ancient tombs, would possess. Emon Yen and Long Chen had become good brothers in the eastern wasteland. Yen Nantian naturally wouldn't expose him. Seeing Emon Yen slap his enemy in the face and then con him into respectfully opening a path for him without the slightest effort, Yen Nantian supposed that the name of the Western wretch was not undeserved. Once Emon Yen had muddled his way into the yin-yang world, Yen Nantian turned and left. He trusted that when the Eastern madman and the Western wretch were reunited, the yin-yang world would become truly lively. The mist before him gradually faded. Long Chen found that he and Yi Lingshan had entered a new world. They were standing in the sky, overlooking an unfamiliar land. He saw an unending mountain range, a huge towering forest, and vines as thick as dragons. This world was thrumming with vitality. In fact, it was even greater than the spirit world. The mountain range continued beyond the horizon. In the end, he saw the peaks of mountains piercing into the clouds. The sun hung high in the sky. It didn't look any different from the Martial Heaven continent. When he looked back, he saw that the mist had long since vanished. He had no idea where exactly he was. The first thing Long Chen did was activate his divine ring. The dense life energy in the air was summoned by the divine ring. It poured into the primal chaos space, and the withered world trees were quickly nourished. Long Chen, don't make such a ruckus as soon as you enter. Yi Lingshan jumped. This place was a danger zone, a place forbidden to life. There were countless dangers, and the slightest carelessness would cause you to lose your life. However, Long Chen acted indifferent to all this as soon as he entered. It's fine. I'll just wait for those fellows to get in here. We can kill each other happily, said Long Chen. Long Chen had never possessed a good temper. Seeing them want to kill him had provoked his killing intent. Don't foolishly wait. The mist seems to be rapidly revolving around this whole world. If you enter at different times, you'll appear in different places. Even if two people enter at the same time, they are unlikely to end up together. The reason we weren't separated was because the Grand Elder used his supreme power to block the power of the laws here, said Yi Lingshan. So there was such a thing? Long Chen was disappointed. He had been prepared to have a large slaughterfest here. Long Chen, the Grand Elder told us to go search for precious medicines that can extend a person's life. Do you want to come with me? Asked Yi Lingshan. Do you have a map? No. There is no map of the Yin-Yang world. Each time it appears, its terrain changes, so maps are useless. We'll need to investigate it ourselves and then exchange information with others to get a more complete picture. However, even that will be useless the next time the Yin-Yang world opens. Then how are you going to find those medicines? I don't know either. The Grand Elders need them though. Although they didn't say it was a must, it's still very important. As long as I can obtain some kind of life-extending medicine, I don't mind missing out on other opportunities. I heard you're an alchemist? Shouldn't you have some way of locating precious medicines? Asked Yi Lingshan. The Grand Elders know that finding such a rare treasure would be up to the karmic luck of the Martial Heaven Alliance. Their existence supports the entire Martial Heaven Alliance, so if the Alliance's karmic luck has not yet come to an end, the life-extending medicine will appear on its own. If not, do you think a few medicines would be able to change the future? In the end, we'll be relying entirely on luck. You know, let me put it to you this way. If you go roaming around to test your luck, based on your karmic luck as the future heir of the Martial Heaven Alliance, you will definitely have a chance of finding the medicine. But if you stay with me, let alone finding it, I don't even know how many dangers you would encounter on your way. So I won't implicate you. You should go on your own before you're brought down by my bad luck. I'll look for it as well. I have some experience when it comes to snatching treasures from others. Long Chen was telling her to go on her own. If she found it, then good. If she didn't, then he would see if he could snatch it from others. In any case, they were all his enemies. He didn't even need to come up with a reason to take their treasures. All right then. Be careful. You have a lot of enemies, warned Yi Lingshan. Just at the entrance, practically everyone was Long Chen's enemy. It was unknown just how many other enemies had entered from different openings to the Yin-Yang world. Don't worry, I've long since gotten used to it. I'm more worried about you. You're strong, but you aren't ruthless enough. You should remember that if anyone targets you, no matter what their reasoning, you have to have the determination to kill them. Your life is no longer just your own. It belongs to the Alliance head and the Martial Heaven Alliance. Compared to before, you are no longer the same. Yi Lingshan was truly powerful. She even had a paragon art now. Even if she encountered powerful enemies, she should have the power to protect herself. Long Chen was just worried that she wouldn't be decisive enough. Before, Yi Lingshan hadn't had the confidence to act like that. She had to have misgivings about who she was fighting. However, she didn't need to worry about that now. She had to be tough. Yi Lingshan nodded. Picking a random direction, she suppressed her aura and rushed off. She definitely didn't want to be like Long Chen and practically broadcast her location. She hid herself to avoid drawing attention. With his divine ring active, Long Chen was basically telling the entire Yin-Yang world that he was waiting here. Once Yi Lingshan left, Long Chen didn't immediately set off. Instead, he sat in the air, keeping his divine ring active to absorb the dense life energy in the surroundings. The will corresponding to the divine ring forced even the Yin-Yang world to give him its energy just like it forced the martial heaven continent. The world trees were starting to revive from their withered state. In 3 days, there was a thrumming forest in the primal chaos space. They had been fully restored. Long Chen took a deep breath. With his primal chaos space restored, he wouldn't need to worry about being injured. If he had possessed such an ability in the outside world, perhaps he would have already beaten those fellows. However, wasting 3 days like this was painful. The very reason they had all entered ahead of time was to get a head start. At this time, there were fewer people and many treasures. It was the best time. Fortunately, Long Chen still felt good. In any case, his luck wasn't good enough to find treasures. Raising his power was what truly mattered. After 3 days, Long Chen had grasped the essentials of the Yin-Yang world. The heavenly Daos here were not that different from the martial heaven continent. He could still unleash the same magical arts here. Their power wasn't lower or greater. The only curious thing was that the sun in the sky always hung in the same spot. It was daytime here all the time. He had to rely on his own sense of time to calculate how many days had passed. Although my luck's not good, I should still look around. What if I do run into something? Long Chen looked around and decided to go in the opposite direction from Yi Lingshan. However, he suddenly had a strange urge. Looking in a certain direction, he decided to go that way. "You've also sensed it?" asked Evil Moon. "Sensed what?" "I just feel like there's something that belongs to me. It's very strange." "I feel the same. Go and take a look. Suppress your aura. There's a nest of heaven-devouring ants to your right. That kind of ancient species is extremely tough. Their defensive prowess is so great that even 12th rank magical beasts would be in danger if they encountered them," warned Evil Moon. "They're so powerful?" Long Chen was surprised. Even 12th rank magical beasts could be killed by a nest of ants? Just as he was startled, an angry roar came from the distance. The sky darkened. Long Chen immediately found a tall tree to conceal himself. Through the leaves, he saw a terrifying scene. There was a wall of giant black ants with a pair of wings, shining with a metallic luster. Their wings flapped rapidly, releasing an ear-piercing sound. The ants also had a pair of black pincers on their mouths. Sticky liquid was dripping off of them. A drop of that black liquid fell near Long Chen. Long Chen hastily dodged, and a large hole appeared in the tree. It then began to rapidly wither. "This poison's really fierce." Millions of those ants flew into the sky. Long Chen saw a giant magical beast being dragged through the air by the ants, going in the direction that he and Evil Moon had sensed. It seemed that they were hunting. That magical beast was at the 12th rank. Surprisingly, it was actually a sword spine armor dragon, the magical beast he had used to run rampant in the ancient race's territory. This sword spine armor dragon's aura was on the same level as that one, however, it was now unable to move. Its mouth opened a few times, but no sound came from it. Just as Long Chen was staring in shock at these heaven-devouring ants, a piece of tree bark behind him moved. The piece of tree bark slowly rose, and 6 spindly legs appeared below it. It was a strange, fist-sized mantis. It was right behind Long Chen. One of its sharp legs silently pierced toward him. It had just moved when it was sent flying by a flick of Long Chen's finger. It smashed into the tree and exploded. When it exploded, Long Chen's expression suddenly changed. He found that when it exploded, a disgusting stench rapidly filled the air. The heaven-devouring ants flying through the sky suddenly split their formation, with a portion of them flying over to Long Chen. The mantis's stench had attracted them. "Fuck, isn't this too unlucky?" cried Long Chen. He turned and fled. The heaven-devouring ants were attracted to the commotion, and a portion of them immediately began to chase him. They were extremely fast. They smashed through the trees in between them and Long Chen. From a distance, it was like an angry dragon was winding its way toward Long Chen, blowing apart all obstacles in its path. Aren't they too fast? Long Chen cursed. Their wings seemed to be tearing through the void. Their speed was hard to believe. When he turned back and saw the sticky fluid dripping out of their pincers, he felt a chill. If bitten, that poison was not something an ordinary person could endure. Even the sword spine armor dragon with its terrifying defenses was unable to resist that poison. Suddenly, green dragon scales covered Long Chen's body. He had summoned the green dragon battle armor. It's useless. The heaven-devouring ants have low intelligence and cannot sense the might of your dragon blood. You can't scare them away, said Evil Moon. The might of dragon blood was able to suppress all other beasts. That was due to the innate reverence those beasts felt. However, it was only useful against beasts with brains. These heaven-devouring ants were not intelligent enough. They continued to charge after him. Then what am I supposed to do? Kill them? Raged Long Chen. That's no good either. If you kill them, they'll send out a message that will draw over hundreds and thousands of times the ants. You should just run. These things are very irritating. Other magical beasts are also irritated by them, so even the other beasts in the surroundings aren't bothering with you when you charge into their territory. Seeing the heaven-devouring ants chasing you, as long as you don't charge into their nests, they'll avoid you, said Evil Moon. Was it really possible to possess such heaven-defying back luck? He had just started roaming around when he was hunted down by an army of heaven-devouring ants. Since Evil Moon said that other magical beasts also tried to avoid these heaven-devouring ants, Long Chen chose to jump out of the forest and fly through the air. As Evil Moon had said, despite sensing several powerful auras as he passed through their territory, those powerful existences only let out low growls of warning and didn't attack Long Chen. There were hundreds of thousands of heaven-devouring ants chasing him. Long Chen's eyes suddenly brightened. If everyone was afraid of these heaven-devouring ants, weren't they also a protective talisman? When he thought of that, he charged into the territory of one of those powerful magical beasts, ignoring its roar. "What are you doing?" shouted Evil Moon. Long Chen didn't reply. He charged straight toward that powerful aura. He quickly saw a mountain with a tiger standing at the peak. The tiger's fur was standing on end. It was ready to attack at any moment. It was a 12th rank magical beast and roared at Long Chen threateningly. "What are you shouting for? Come and bite me." Long Chen charged straight at it. The tiger found that its roars were unable to frighten Long Chen away, so it actually turned tail and fled from its home. "Hey, brother tiger, don't run. I still have something to discuss with you," shouted Long Chen, but the tiger ignored him. Its huge body instantly vanished. "Coward! Don't you feel ashamed of your title as king of the forest? What happened to your dignity? Your integrity? Oh, nice treasures." Long Chen suddenly noticed a certain tree on the mountain. The mountain was bare except for this one tree. It was extremely conspicuous. The tree had brownish-yellow fruit growing on it. Each of them was the size of a plate, and they shone faintly. Long Chen's spiritual strength reached out. He was shocked to find that although this tree was 3,000 meters tall, its roots were spread throughout the giant mountain. There was an endless amount of earth energy being absorbed by it. It's the thick earth essence fruit. The earth essence makes it a divine fruit for earth cultivators. Long Chen laughed delightedly. He rushed toward it, but after a moment's hesitation he didn't take it. Instead, he used his spiritual strength to grab half the matured fruit. This tree was being guarded by that tiger. It took 10,000 years to bloom, 10,000 years to bear fruit, and 10,000 years for that fruit to mature. The tiger had been guarding it bitterly for so long. If he took the entire tree, he'd feel bad. More importantly, this tree was too big and would take him some time to transplant. When the heaven-devouring ants arrived, they wouldn't care how precious this tree was. They would definitely destroy it in their desire to kill him, and that would be a waste of a natural treasure. Long Chen gathered half the fruit and cut off one of its branches, tossing it into the primal chaos space. The branch quickly began to grow roots and thrive in the primal chaos space. Seeing there was no problem, Long Chen changed directions, bringing the army of heaven-devouring ants away. He finally experienced how refreshing it was to exploit someone else's power for his own gain. He scared off 3 powerful 12th rank magical beasts in a row, but regretfully, other than the thick earth essence fruit, he didn't gain anything else. He knew that the territory of 12th rank magical beasts could not be ordinary. They had to have precious medicines or divine fruit somewhere, or they wouldn't make that place their territory. Regretfully, the army of heaven-devouring ants didn't give him enough time to look around. As he ran, he experienced just how terrifying this yin-yang world was. There were terrifying magical beasts everywhere. 12th rank magical beasts were on the level of Nether Passage experts. Without a divine item, ordinary Nether Passage experts weren't even a match for these magical beasts. In particular, he sensed an even more terrifying existence as he ran, but he decided not to go mess around there. That terrifying existence gave him an extremely dangerous feeling. That sensation of danger was even greater than what came from the army of heaven-devouring ants behind him. If that magical beast wasn't afraid of the heaven-devouring ants, he would be caught between the two of them. That was definitely too dangerous. As he ran, Long Chen didn't use the celestial lightning body blink. He wanted to see if he could profit a bit more from the heaven-devouring ants. He turned, going in the direction that he had picked out originally. A long train of ants followed him as he flew through the air. They were like attendants sending off him, the Emperor. That feeling is growing more distinct. It seems it's nearby, said Evil Moon. Long Chen nodded. He also sensed an aura that was both familiar yet foreign. It was very strange. Hey, why did they leave? Long Chen suddenly saw that the heaven-devouring ants following him had dropped in number. A few of them had flown off, and another portion was starting to slow down. There were now only 10,000 of them left. Long Chen suddenly turned and attacked them. What the? Brat, you're crazy. Have you started to feel emotional toward them after being chased for so long? Shouted Evil Moon, unable to comprehend just what Long Chen was thinking. When Long Chen turned against them, those heaven-devouring ants were provoked, and the ones that had been slowing down once more shot after him. However, many of them had already left. There were only 20 to 30,000 of them left. That was still terrifying enough. Their black bodies filled the sky. Boom! Long Chen extended a hand. A giant cauldron appeared and devoured those ants. This cauldron was the blazing dragon cauldron that had been with him all this time. Although it was just an ancestral item, having been constantly nourishing it with his soul, it had reached its absolute peak. It was only the slightest bit weaker than a divine item. The blazing dragon cauldron slammed shut, and the heaven-devouring ants began to crazily attack from within. Even the blazing dragon cauldron was rumbling, seeming on the verge of breaking apart. Any ordinary ancestral item would have exploded. Long Chen slammed a hand on the blazing dragon cauldron, and golden flames surged out, enveloping the cauldron. At the same time, golden threads intersected within, forming a net that bound the heaven-devouring ants. As Long Chen's spiritual strength erupted, those threads grew tighter and tighter until the heaven-devouring ants were no longer able to attack the blazing dragon cauldron. Although Long Chen had acted quickly, there were still countless cracks on the blazing dragon cauldron now. Damn, they really are terrifying. Long Chen was amazed. The power of their pincers was immense. It was no wonder even 12th rank magical beasts would be run off by them. Why waste so much effort to trap them? Are you planning on making supplements? Mocked Evil Moon. These are house pets for Meng Qi. Well, you don't need to ask. You wouldn't understand. Long Chen laughed and continued in his original direction. He quickly arrived at a giant cave. There was a hair-raising aura coming from within the cave that made cold sweat run down his back. What is this place? In the battle in the Qing prefecture of the Eastern Wastelands, Long Chen had activated the Green Dragon possession to annihilate the Yin family and even fight against the Yin family's patriarch, forcing him to use his treasure item, the Jade Sea Gold Bell. That had been a world-shaking battle. Seeing that Long Chen had grown to such a terrifying level, large waves surged in Emon Yen's heart. Even having become a celestial, he felt the difference growing between him and Long Chen. Now, the Mo mountain seal had been exposed, and his grandpa Moe had no choice but to bring the Mo family's experts away. Moe had invited Long Chen to come, but Long Chen had declined. Hence, the Mo mountain seal rapidly flew away. Mo Nien looked back as Long Chen's figure shrank in the distance. In just a moment, he vanished from sight. Mo Nien couldn't help sighing. Mo patted him on the shoulder. "Child, what is there to sigh about? The world might be large, but as long as you're strong enough, you can control everything. If you're not strong enough, then no matter how big the world is, it has nothing to do with you." The Mo family was forced to split up and flee to various lands, but they still refused to let us off. They want us dead to the last. Before this, our little branch had had no way to deal with them, but when Long Chen gave his heavenly Tao seed to you, it caused a change in your heavenly Tao energy. You're not an ordinary celestial, so even if this matter with the Yin family didn't occur, I was still planning on bringing you to the ancestral lands to test your luck. "Where are the ancestral lands?" asked Mo Nien. "The Central Plains." Mo Nien was startled. He hadn't expected the Mo family's ancestral lands to be located in the land where heavenly geniuses were everywhere. If that was the case, then the Mo family's inheritance was many times greater than he had thought. "Child, this world is so large that you can't even imagine it. The Central Plains is the stage of the real experts. Right now, you are only at the meridian opening realm. In the Central Plains cultivation world, you aren't even an ant. But our time is pressing, so we don't have that much time to let you grow. That's why we have no choice but to gamble. If we win the gamble, we'll be able to restore our former glory. If we lose, the Mo family will never be able to extricate itself from its current predicament." An unprecedented graveness appeared on Mo Yi's face. "Grandpa, bang!" Suddenly, the Mo mountain seal shook intensely. Mo Nien staggered. "Be careful. We've already reached one of the Martial Heaven continent's 7 great danger zones, the Martial Heaven Sea Ring. Everyone, get down into the underground space," ordered Mo. The Mo mountain seal flew for 3 months, and they ran into quite a few dangers. When going through transportation formations, they had to endure countless rude interrogations. Fortunately, the Mo mountain seal looked like a spatial treasure item and didn't draw too much attention. However, Mo Nien was still irritated. The great and supreme grandpa of his was actually being ordered around by other experts. Those people's cultivation bases were so high that the Mo family was powerless to resist. This was Mo Nien's first time feeling just how important power was. Without power, wanting to live a life of dignity was a pipe dream. After layers of obstructions, after carefully traveling for months, after detouring around several dangerous regions, they finally arrived at a certain place. However, upon arriving here, Mo Nien couldn't believe his eyes. This place was actually a pile of ruins. It was the kind of ruins that could not be ruined anymore. There was not a single brick or tile that was still intact. It was filled with a desolate and gloomy air. "This is our Mo family's ancestral land. It's already been flipped over by countless experts as they search for our treasures. Too bad they all returned empty-handed. Do they think my Mo family's inheritance would be open to outsiders?" sneered Mo. An invisible surge of energy came from the Mo mountain seal. "All right, Niena, I have used the Mo mountain seal to open the inheritance. Go into the ancestral space." Ripples came from below the ruins. The space around Mo Nien twisted and he vanished. "Ha, dregs of the Mo family, you finally appeared. Now let's see where you can run to." Mo Nien had just been sent through when countless figures appeared, surrounding the Mo mountain seal. Mo Yi's expression completely changed. Mo Nien's vision darkened. With the space around him twisting, he felt like he had been devoured by a monster. He was within endless darkness. After a long moment, Mo Nien felt his feet step onto solid ground again. He saw that he was in a dark world. There wasn't the slightest light here, and the air was filled with the aura of decay. After that, Mo Nien spread his divine sense to take a look around and couldn't help but jump in shock. This place was actually an underground tomb, and there were thousands of stone coffins around him. He was in the middle of those coffins. This ancient tomb was hundreds of miles long. Mo Nien took out a light stone and gasped at what he saw. This is my Mo family's ancestral land? There were countless statues against the walls, and they were filled with a sacred and noble air. 2 statues were particularly large. They were almost lifelike, and it was like light was flowing within their eyes. An immortal charm danced within them. But when Mo Nien looked at the 2 giant statues, a sea of runes appeared behind him. His heavenly Tao manifestation activated all by itself. There were also 2 figures in his manifestation. They were remarkably similar to the 2 statues. These 2 should be the originators of my Mo family. These statues, they're so magnificent and powerful. Could it be that bus? Just at this moment, the dust on the 2 statues began to fall. Divine runes began to appear around them. Those runes were very faint at the start, but they grew brighter and brighter until they were like stars. At the same time, a gentle energy enveloped Mo Nien. Mo Nien involuntarily fell to his knees. He kowtowed to the 2 statues and felt a resonance deep within his soul, as well as a kind of bloodline summoning. He knew that they had to be the ancestors of the Mo family. Disciple Mo Nien greets the ancestors. Mo Nien kowtowed 9 times. Everyone entombed here had been a big figure of the Mo family. Although they had already died, the fact that they could be buried here in the Mo family's ancestral lands meant that they had been outstanding and remarkable figures in the Mo family's history. Unfortunately, no one replied to him. When he finally rose, he saw that the 2 figures in his heavenly Tao manifestation had formed a connection with the 2 statues. It seemed that they were in the midst of communicating. The runes on the statues grew brighter and brighter. Following that, they began to float off the statues and fly toward Mo Nien. They merged into his manifestation. Boom. When the first rune merged into his manifestation, it was like a meteorite had fallen into a calm lake. A powerful explosion drove Mo Nien to his knees. He coughed up blood, and cracks appeared all over his body. He had almost died from the huge amount of energy that rune had brought. He couldn't help being horrified. It seemed that he had come too early. With his current cultivation base, merging with such terrifying runes was too much. He should have cultivated to a higher level before attempting it. Just merging with 1 rune had almost shattered his bones. When he looked at the hundreds and thousands of runes currently floating off the 2 statues, he immediately felt despair. The second rune would definitely kill him. However, his body was locked in place by some invisible energy. He couldn't even run. Just at this moment, the tomb began to shake. The thousands of coffins had blood-colored runes light up. At the same time, web-like runes appeared on the ground. They connected to all the coffins while Mo Nien was at the very center of the web. Mo Nien was standing at the center of thousands of coffins, and the ground was covered in a web of runes connected to all the coffins. Energy was coming from each strand of the web and surging toward Mo Nien. Mo Nien's body shook. What shocked him was that the energy coming from the coffins was actually very gentle. It was nourishing his body endlessly. His body was like a dry riverbed finally being nourished by water. It was greedily absorbing this energy. Boom. Suddenly, Mo Nien's aura surged. He had directly leaped from the meridian opening realm to the Xiantian realm. Furthermore, his aura was still continuing to rise. First heaven stage of Xiantian. Second heaven stage of Xiantian. Third heaven stage of Xiantian. With each breath, his cultivation base increased by a minor level. Even Mo Nien was stunned. He didn't dare to move. He had never imagined a person could undergo such a crazy advancement. Boom. At this time, over 10 of the 2 statues' runes merged into Mo Nien's body. He once more coughed up blood, his body almost exploding. However, as the energy of the coffins entered him as well, his body was constantly nourished and growing stronger. His cultivation base crazily advanced. 6th heaven stage of Xiantian. 7th heaven stage of Xiantian. 8th heaven stage of Xiantian. Endless energy came from the coffins. At the same time, the statue's runes continued to merge with him. There were two kinds of energy within his body, one constantly causing destruction, while one was constantly upgrading and restoring his body so it could handle the destruction. They had reached an equilibrium. Boom. A crazy aura surged out of Emonian's body as he entered the sea expansion realm. Without him doing anything, a huge amount of the statue's runes surged into his dantian. His chi grew explosively. 100 miles. 200 miles. 300 miles. Emonian felt like he had gone crazy. He had never heard of someone entering sea expansion this quickly. Fortunately, he still knew the theory behind sea expansion. For other people, increasing the size of their chi required medicinal pills. A chi of 300 miles marked someone as an elite, however, he had reached that level in just a single breath. 400 miles. 500 miles. Emonian's chi quickly grew to 10,000 miles. His heart was pounding wildly. 10,000 miles was known as a limit, but based on how things were going, he was going to break right past it. Bang. His chi broke that limit instantly. It was like something had exploded, and it grew explosively. 3,000 miles, 10,000 miles, 30,000 miles, Emonian couldn't believe his eyes. With the help of his ancestors' runes, his chi had been expanded to 30,000 miles. He had never even heard of a chi this large. After his chi had reached its limit, more energy surged into his dantian, instantly filling it. First heaven stage of sea expansion. Second heaven stage of sea expansion. Even after entering the sea expansion realm, the energy of the coffins and the runes of the ancestral statues continued to pour into his body. Emonian was completely dumbstruck now, as none of this was within his control. His cultivation base was just crazily growing. Even he was starting to get afraid. This advancement was too fast. At the same time as he felt his cultivation base explosively grow, something new had appeared in the depths of his soul. He was about to check what it was when, boom, he directly entered the foundation forging realm. Upon reaching the foundation forging realm, a rune on the forehead of each of the ancestral statues flew off and into Emonian's head. Two runes slowly appeared on Emonian's forehead. They got closer and closer until they finally merged into one new rune. When the new rune appeared, this entire underground world began to shudder. Those runes were also trembling. However, that new rune quickly faded, and the process of foundation forging started. His original rune appeared. Following the appearance of the first original rune, his cultivation base began rising once more. First heaven stage of foundation forging. Second heaven stage of foundation forging. Emonian's cultivation base rose all the way to the 9th heaven stage of foundation forging before it stopped. The web of runes on the ground faded, and the coffins also became calm. It was like nothing had happened, but Emonian was staring at his own hands blankly. Feeling the unprecedented power in his body, he couldn't believe what had just happened. Suddenly, the wall behind Emonian shattered, revealing a stone gate. It slowly opened, and 5-colored light flooded the underground space. The 5-element sun-hunting bow. Emonian let out a startled but ecstatic cry. Emonian's heart pounded wildly. It was a beautiful 5-colored bow. It was long and simple. There were runes outside it, and within it, there seemed to be 5-colored blood flowing. He felt 5 different kinds of energy inside the bowstring. Each type of energy, metal, wood, water, fire, and earth, was extremely pure. His own blood began to surge when he saw this bow. He felt close to the bow. It's the first generation's 5-element sun-hunting bow. Emonian's voice was quivering. This was his Emo family's most priceless treasure. It actually hadn't been lost. It had been hidden here. That was the #1 divine bow of the Emo family. Due to how much time had passed, the 5-element sun-hunting bow had become a legend. He reached out to touch the 5-element sun-hunting bow when light suddenly exploded out of it. A vast surge of energy poured into his body. The void rumbled as this underground world shook. Emonian's cry of the heavenly Daos once more appeared automatically, along with the 2 figures within it. However, at this time, the two figures slowly dissolved. Replacing them was a five-colored bow. Within the sea of runes behind Emon was now a beautiful scene. There was a bow hanging in the air, while below it was a world of mountains and rivers that it dominated. Information poured into Emon mind. There was so much that he almost fainted. Eventually, the light faded. The five-element sun-hunting bow had vanished, and his manifestation was gone as well. Emon slowly opened his eyes, and a rune was flowing within each of them. That rune was an image of the five-colored bow in his manifestation. Upon extending his arm, the five-element sun-hunting bow appeared in his hand. Emon was shocked as well as excited. The five-element sun-hunting bow had actually merged with his body, and he could summon it freely. Haha, I, Emon, am no longer the old Emon. My name will definitely resound throughout the Central Plains. Emon laughed grandly. Boom. Suddenly, all the statues and coffins within this underground world exploded. Emon was shocked. Before he understood what was going on, runes wrapped around him, and the space around him twisted. He reappeared above ground. It was currently noon. The sun was hanging high in the sky. He saw that this was the place he had entered from. Where is the Emo Mountain Seal? Emon suddenly noticed that his surroundings were empty. The Emo Mountain Seal and the people of Emo Gate had all vanished. But just as he was stunned, countless runes filled the sky. They formed a giant barrier that trapped him. Ha, bastard of the Emo family, you finally appeared. We had to wait 3 years for you. Suddenly, dozens of figures appeared in the sky. Their auras were very powerful, and they were all kings at the Jade Core realm. Their leader was a large man with a thick beard. He was smiling upon seeing Emon. Emon had a bad feeling, but he was still calm. Who are you? Where is my family? Who I am isn't something you need to know. As for your family, you'll know very quickly. That large man laughed and waved his hand. The formation of runes transformed into dozens of chains that bound Emon. Laughing, the large man arrived in front of Emon. He reached out for Emon's neck. Suddenly, one of Emon's fingers pressed against that large man's head. Then, an invisible surge of energy obliterated his head. This sudden change caught those kings off guard. Their leader had actually been slain. Most shocking of all, those runic chains that had been binding Emon had shattered like mud. Your guts aren't small. Emon had conducted a soul search and learned everything that had happened. His killing intent surged. His family had been captured. This brat's strange. Attack together, shouted another king, attacking with his fellows. Die. Emon extended a single finger. A single rune appeared at the tip of his finger and was launched. That rune shot out and exploded halfway there, transforming into multiple arrows that instantly annihilated those kings before they could even dodge. Without even glancing at these people, Emon vanished from his original location. 2 mountains away from the Emo family's ancestral lands, there was a giant prison. Emo Gate's people were currently imprisoned here. Fuck, it's been 3 years. Guarding these pigs all day is so boring. Bang. A disciple wearing white robes who looked to be in his 20s tossed a talisman into the prison. The talisman exploded, and cursing voices came from within. Only then did that disciple smile as if this was the only way to alleviate his boredom. Really, why did we get sent to do such a boring mission? Did that little fellow even manage to enter their so-called ancestral land? What if he died inside or can't get out? Will they keep us guarding here forever? Another disciple tossed a similar exploding rune inside. This time, screams came from within as someone had clearly been injured. The prison had been built inside a cave, so they couldn't see what was happening inside. There were hundreds of disciples guarding this place, and some of them were bored enough to use this method to pass the time. What do you think would happen if we tossed in 10 low-grade exploding talismans at once? The screams seemed to have provoked them. One disciple took out a handful of exploding runes. You can't. We're ordered not to cause too many casualties before that Emon returns, countered one disciple. It's fine, 10 low-grade exploding talismans won't kill that many. I'll try it. That disciple smiled and threw in 10 exploding talismans. However, just as they were thrown in, a large hand caught the exploding talismans and stuffed them into that disciple's mouth. Boom! That disciple's head exploded. His headless corpse slowly fell to the ground. "Who are you?" The other disciples shouted in alarm. When the blood and dust fell, it revealed Emo Nien's eyes that were filled with killing intent. An icy voice rang out. "The person who will send you to hell." The person who will send you to hell. A figure slowly appeared within the dust and blood. No one could see his face clearly. They only saw two eyes filled with killing intent, eyes that looked to belong to the Grim Reaper. "Die!" Emo Nien extended a finger, and runic arrows shot out, blowing these disciples to bits. "Nien, is that you?" Emo Yi's voice came from within the cave, trembling with emotion. An elder in tattered robes quickly appeared at the entrance of the cave. It was his grandpa. His current grandpa had lost his old kingly appearance. His hair was disheveled, and even one of his arms was gone. He looked like a beggar. "I'm sorry. You've had to suffer." Seeing his grandpa's appearance, a sour feeling appeared in Emo Nien's heart. All this time, his Emo family had to have suffered endlessly. Emo Nien then flashed into action. He grabbed the chains of the prison gate. At this time, the other people of the Emo family also rushed forward. However, their bodies were chained and shackled. "Don't bother with us. You have to run." "There's Dash," Emo immediately shouted at Emo Nien when he saw him grab the chains. These chains were extremely tough and had restrictions on them. Just as Emo Nien touched the chains, 3 giant gates slammed shut behind him, trapping him here. Emo Nien didn't even glance at the gates. These chains, which were on the level of king items, shattered in Emo Nien's hands. They were as weak as paper to Emo Nien. "Grandpa, don't worry, since I came, it's because I can bring everyone out." Emo Nien reached out and broke the chains on Emo Yi and the others. Seeing Emo Nien easily break these incomparably tough chains without the slightest effort, the Emo family's people were delighted. Only then did they notice that Emo Nien's aura had already risen to the foundation forging realm. Nien in the ancestral land. Emo was about to ask what had happened when laughter rang out from outside. "Haha, the Emo family's people are really stupid. You actually fell into our trap so easily." Shockingly, this place was already surrounded by thousands of experts. That laugh came from a soul transformation expert, and despair filled the hearts of the Emo family's people. Even if Emo Nien had reached the foundation forging realm, there was no hope. "Grandpa, back up and be safe. I'll eliminate them." Boom. In front of Emo Yi and the others' shocked gazes, Emo Nien walked directly out of the cave. Runes lit up on his foot. Even backed by a powerful formation, those gates along with half the mountain were blown back. With half the mountain smashing toward them, those experts outside jumped in fright. A soul transformation expert unleashed a punch that blew the mountain apart. Before he could do anything else, Emo Nien appeared in front of him and extended a finger. A hole appeared in the head of that soul transformation expert. He fell, a shocked expression still on his face. Emo Nien had annihilated his Yuan spirit in one attack. "Chi Luo?" After slaying that person, Emo Nien's gaze swept through the crowd. He quickly saw a certain man with a full beard. That man immediately felt ice cold upon being stared at by Emo Nien. "Hand over the Emo Mountain seal." Emo Nien was like a death god looking at someone whose life was about to reach an end. "Attack together. Kill this evil brat." That man roared, and together with 4 other soul transformation experts, the 5 of them launched all-out attacks. Runes filled the sky. A 5-colored bow appeared in Emo Nien's hand. As soon as it appeared, all the Emo family's people let out startled cries. They recognized it. Emo Nien held the bow in his left hand, while his right hand pulled back the bowstring. Heaven and earth rumbled as energy gathered. Not good. Those 5 soul transformation experts suddenly sensed a strong smell of death at the same time. They almost instinctively turned and fled for their lives. However, it was too late. A translucent arrow shot out, transforming into thousands of homing bolts that struck the 5 of them. 4 of them were instantly turned to dust. As for the other experts that had yet to even have a chance to attack or even shout, they were also directly blown to bits. Mo Nian reached out and grabbed the soul survivor, the soul transformation expert called Qi Luo. Qi Luo's whole body was like mud with a bloody hole in his chest. Mo Nian's arrow had shattered his meridians, and even his Yuan spirit was on the verge of dissipating. Within Qi Luo's spatial ring, Mo Nian found the Mo mountain seal. He released it, allowing it to rapidly grow larger in the sky. Mo and the others were ecstatic. They flew out of their prison, flying to the Mo mountain seal. It was like they had finally returned home. After finding the Mo mountain seal, Mo Nian killed that Qi Luo. Another soul transformation expert was slain. Mo was wild with joy. He had already ordered disciples to quickly clean up the battlefield. Nieno, it seems you've found the Mo family's ultimate inheritance in the ancestral lands. There's finally hope of getting vengeance. However, our enemies are still too strong, so we need to run for now. Once you're strong enough, we'll get our vengeance. There are still several things we need to do. First, we have to gather the other branches of the Mo family silently, said Mo after the battlefield was cleaned up. Mo Nian nodded. They returned to the Mo mountain seal, and it flew off. Looking at this place fade into the distance, Mo Nian clenched his fists. He hadn't expected that he wouldn't be able to sense the flow of time within the ancestral land. 3 years had passed without him noticing. Long Chen, I've already found my inheritance. What about you? Don't get thrown too far into the distance. Without you here, the Central Plains won't be as interesting. At this time, Mo Nian still didn't know that Long Chen had long since come to the Central Plains and was starting to flip the heavens in a certain region. The cave was dozens of miles wide. It was pitch black inside, and an evil air came from within. There were also some bloodline fluctuations that made Long Chen's heart pound. This should be a metal-devouring evil dragon cave. It seems we came to the right place. There might be something we want inside, said Evil Moon excitedly. Metal-devouring evil dragon? What is that? Does it belong to your evil dragon race? Asked Long Chen. This cave looked too frightening to enter. The dragon race is so large that you can't even imagine it. Just the evil dragon race has countless branches. You saw a purgatory evil dragon in purgatory, which also belongs to the evil dragon race. However, amongst the evil dragon race, it is my dark evil dragon branch that possesses the greatest combat power. However, our strongest divine abilities are not dependent on our physical bodies. When it comes to the toughest physical bodies, the metal-devouring evil dragon would be number 1. Other than devouring flesh, there is a strange variety that also devours large amounts of metal ore. That makes their bodies extremely tough, and in particular, their teeth and claws can easily tear through our bodies, so we never allow metal-devouring evil dragons to approach us, said Evil Moon. Really, they're that amazing? Then didn't we come here for nothing? You're still sealed and I'm only at the soul transformation realm. Wouldn't entering be suicide? Long Chen was speechless. This was just more bad luck. If he startled a metal-devouring evil dragon inside, he wouldn't get out no matter how many lives he had. Don't worry, the metal-devouring evil dragon is already dead. It still retains its essence blood, which is what you sense. If you can obtain its corpse, it will be very beneficial. Although this metal-devouring evil dragon's cultivation base should be around the mid-12th rank, so in terms of human ranks, your Nether Passage realm's life realm, it was extremely powerful when it was alive. Yannan Tian might not be its match. Let's enter carefully. If we're lucky and I can obtain some dragon marrow, I'll be able to loosen the sovereign's seal slightly. Then I'll be able to use at least 10 times the power I can now, said Evil Moon. Toward the end, its voice quivered slightly in anticipation. Long Chen could only thicken his skin and advance. Evil Moon was resting on his shoulder, ready for any sudden change. Once they were in, a chilly evil air made goosebumps appear all over Long Chen. Yes, one portion is its dragon might, while another is just innate fear. The evil dragon pressure indicates how pure its bloodline is. This kind of bloodline power can be raised by slaughtering more, said Evil Moon. Then why don't I naturally release this kind of aura? I only release something when I'm filled with killing intent. It's completely different from you, said Long Chen. Evil Moon was truly terrifying. Each time he used it to fight, its innate evil air would cause others to tremble in fear. Even top experts would expose weaknesses more easily under that pressure. In a life and death battle, Evil Moon's pressure would make an opponent's mind chaotic. It would lead to errors in judgment and delays in reaction speed. Your kind of scenario is very rare. According to reason, after killing so many experts, you should have accumulated a great deal of their resentment. Normally, when people are infected by that much resentment, their minds and hearts will become twisted. That makes them cold and merciless, and yet you remain the same silly person as always, Evil Moon sighed. Can I take that as praise? Asked Long Chen as he carefully advanced one step at a time. You can take it as that. It's very curious. My dark evil dragon race has a method to absorb this resentment into our scales to create a powerful pressure, strengthening our dragon might, as well as stopping the resentment from affecting our minds and souls. However, you don't have that resentment around you. It's like you haven't been affected at all. Evil Moon suddenly let out a startled cry. What is it? Long Chen jumped, immediately stopping and looking around. Oh, sorry, it's nothing. I just thought of something ominous. You can continue. Evil Moon apologized for the disruption. However, just then, it had thought of the Long Chen that had appeared in purgatory for just a moment. That Long Chen had been wild, arrogant, domineering, merciless, and bloodthirsty. Weren't those precisely signs of someone being infected by that immense resentment? When he wanted to warn Long Chen about this, the instant that thought appeared in Evil Moon's mind, a terrifying sensation of danger enveloped it. It seemed that this was a taboo that could not be spoken. Are you testing my guts? You almost scared the crap out of me, raged Long Chen indignantly. They were currently within the metal-devouring evil dragon's cave. Any sudden action could frighten someone to death. Just as they were speaking, Long Chen saw a giant skeleton ahead. It looked like an earthen dragon. Its flesh had already vanished, and its bones sparkled like jade. There were still runes on the bones emitting powerful pressure. Damn, the skeleton of a 12th rank magical beast. Long Chen carefully climbed up the skeleton. He arrived on its skull and recognized the identity of this skeleton. It was a rodent-type magical beast. Most likely, it had been a giant rat, but as for what it was specifically, there was no way for him to know. Its crystal core has already withered. It's impossible to turn its skull into a crystal bone, so it's useless. Long Chen jumped off. The crystal core was already dim. He couldn't help shaking his head. He tossed the skeleton into the primal chaos space. What surprised him was that this skeleton, which was as hard as divine items, was slowly devoured by the black soil, giving him immense life energy. Faint mist filled the primal chaos space. The thick earth essence fruit tree rapidly grew. Hee, at least I got a bit of benefits. Long Chen smiled. This broken skeleton of a 12th rank magical beast had brought him a nice surprise. If there were more skeletons here, it would give him endless life energy. Evil Moon, do you know how this rat died? I can't tell, asked Long Chen. It has no injuries on its body and there are no signs of struggle. Its death is really strange. Let's be careful. My guess is that there might have been many magical beasts that placed their sights on the metal-devouring evil dragon's corpse, and this rat might have been killed by them. Most rodent magical beasts have very weak spiritual strength. It wouldn't be strange for it to have been killed spiritually, said Evil Moon. Long Chen nodded and continued onward. However, after just a while, he saw a pitch-black head blocking the cave. It was the head of a centipede. It was lying there with its eyes glaring at him. It's already dead. Long Chen had already taken a couple of steps back when he found that while the centipede was still emitting an alarming aura, its spiritual fluctuations had vanished. It was also a corpse. He carefully jumped onto its head. This giant centipede's body was hollow. It was just a husk. Originally, he had still possessed some hope, but when he opened its head, he felt disappointed. Its poison sac had been taken, while its crystal core was ruined as well. It was like something had sucked it dry. Although it was said that a 12th rank magical beast's body was comparable to a divine item, that would only be true while their divine runes were intact. With their crystal core withered, those divine runes would fade away. This corpse was also worthless. Although its teeth and outer shell might possess some value, Long Chen didn't care too much about that. It was possible to refine it into some weapons or armor, but their power would be lower than that of divine items. Hence, he tossed it into the primal chaos space's black soil. Long Chen continued forward. Everything in front of him was pitch black, and he couldn't see the end. He was starting to get a bad feeling. These two magical beasts had died in a bizarre way. It made him feel like this cave was too dangerous. However, since he had already come here, he was unwilling to leave without getting to the bottom of the cave. He didn't dare to spread his spiritual strength to investigate what was going on here. He didn't want to disturb whatever was inside. Having completely suppressed his aura and his spiritual strength, he carefully advanced. The cave was extremely deep. Miles later, he found another corpse, and this time of a python. Its flesh had also vanished, leaving behind only its skeleton. There was still nothing valuable on its body. Putting away its corpse, Long Chen continued onward. This time, he didn't encounter a magical beast's corpse. If this cave hadn't been just one straight path, he would have thought that he had taken a wrong turn somewhere. He spent the better part of the day creeping forward carefully. Finally, he saw a faint glimmer of light in the distance. His guard rose as he slowly walked over. After a few more turns, he arrived at a large and spacious area. When he poked his head in to look around, a chill went through his body. This large space was filled with skeletons. Long Chen looked and saw at least over 30 corpses, all belonging to 12th rank magical beasts. Just seeing a single skeleton of a 12th rank magical beast was already shocking enough, but seeing so many gathered together was another matter entirely. Long Chen suppressed his wildly beating heart, doing his best to stay calm. He crept forward and saw that this was a giant underground space. There were skeletons everywhere. In front of them was a giant stone pillar. There was a giant dragon skeleton coiled around it. This dragon skeleton looked like it had been made of gold. Divine light was still shining from it, illuminating this underground world. This golden skeleton was definitely a true member of the dragon race, not a drake. It had 2 horns on its head to distinguish it. This should be the metal-devouring evil dragon. It actually reached the death realm. It seems it forcibly broke through, and its longevity ran out, causing it to die here, said Evil Moon. The human race's nether passage realm had corresponding levels amongst 12th rank magical beasts. There were 4 steps, stabilizing one's power upon entering the nether passage realm, the life realm, the death realm, and the samsara realm. The first step was essentially not even a realm. It didn't require comprehension, just some time. It was the latter 3 realms that were very difficult to cultivate. Each of them was a threshold that could result in death. Originally, Evil Moon had thought that this metal-devouring evil dragon had only reached the life realm, but unexpectedly, it had entered the death realm. However, it had exhausted its life energy while in the death realm, not possessing the ability to transform death into life. It had died, but its skeleton was perfectly preserved. Evil Moon, I don't think it's so simple. Based on my years of experience with bad luck, I smell something fishy, said Long Chen cautiously. It really is strange. Its skeleton is still perfect, and its divine runes are still shining. That means its crystal core is still intact. Furthermore, look below its neck. Its reverse scale is still present and thrumming with dragon blood. That's what drew us over, said Evil Moon. Long Chen looked at where Evil Moon was pointing and noticed a golden scale floating in front of the skeleton's chest. Because its entire body was golden, that scale was covered up by the golden light. He hadn't noticed it at first. Most importantly, these skeletons are too bizarre. So many magical beasts died here. I feel like this is a dash. Suddenly, the cave rumbled. and Long Chen felt something moving behind him. Looking back, he jumped. At some unknown time, the path behind him had vanished. He was stuck here. When Long Chen turned back, he saw that there was now a path behind the metal-devouring evil dragon. That path was precisely the one he had entered from. He had no idea what had happened, but he had been moved into a death trap without realizing it. If he wanted to get out, he would need to get past the metal-devouring evil dragon and the mountain of skeletons. Just at this moment, the giant dragon skeleton on the stone pillar began to move. Its dragon head slowly turned toward Long Chen, and its mouth let out a booming voice. I really didn't expect to smell such a familiar scent. Amazing. If I can devour you, I should have enough life energy to rise from the dead and step into the samsara realm. The metal-devouring evil dragon's voice rang through the air. It was speaking the human language. Long Chen came to a sudden comprehension. So you were playing dead, using your essence blood to draw these magical beasts over and then killing them for their life energy. Wrong. The metal-devouring evil dragon race disdains feigning death. I simply failed while attempting to break through to samsara. My life energy was lacking, and even when I sacrificed my physical body, I was still unable to transform death into life. But then a few idiots began bumbling over here, attracted to my essence blood. Did they think they could take it? Even after failing my breakthrough, killing them was easy. But after absorbing their essence blood, I found that the life energy within them could allow me to attempt to break through again if I accumulated enough of it. Human race brat, you're very good in particular. You actually have true dragon essence blood on you, and it's so pure. Just who are you? The metal-devouring evil dragon's large eye cavities began to twinkle with a cold light. Who am I? If you want to know who I am, stand firm. I am the 17,589th generation heir to the divine dragon race. My name is Long Chen, ancestor to all dragons - biome. The metal-devouring evil dragons, I suddenly unleashed a ray of divine light. This underground world shook intensely, and Long Chen's mind sea quivered as an unmatched power invaded it. It was a golden sword that was trying to destroy his mind sea. However, it had just appeared when the divine gate star activated. A ray of light shattered the golden sword. Fuck, can you at least let me finish speaking? Shouted Long Chen. To dare insult my dragon race, you have some guts. The metal-devouring evil dragon clearly wouldn't fall for Long Chen's lies. It opened its mouth, and a wave of golden light spread. Long Chen's soul immediately felt like it was about to break. It was like millions of needles were stabbing into his head. A sea of spiritual strength was crashing down on his mind sea. However, with his divine gate star, that terrifying spiritual strength was unable to land a critical blow. No wonder those magical beasts were killed without being able to struggle. Your spiritual attacks are really vicious, said Long Chen. It's not just a spiritual attack. The dragon might made them unable to resist at all. However, it is useless against you. That's enough. Stop probing and kill it. Evil Moon didn't even wait for Long Chen. Its black marks lit up and an evil air filled this space. It was sucking Long Chen's spiritual yuan away. Split the heavens 6. Long Chen launched his strongest attack. Evil Moon rumbled, and it was like a bolt of black lightning crashing down on the waist of the metal-devouring evil dragon skeleton. Its skeleton was cleanly cut in two. The metal-devouring evil dragon roared furiously. This is the aura of the dark evil dragon. You, a member of the grand dark evil dragons, have actually been refined into a weapon by humans. Evil Moon didn't reply. Its two dragon marks lit up and killing intense sword as it attacked again. Boom. This time, its slash landed on the metal-devouring evil dragon's head. It was a heaven-shaking collision that caused Long Chen's hands to split open and bleed. Evil Moon itself went flying out of his grip. Dark evil dragon, don't you claim to be the emperor of the evil dragons? What happened to your dignity? What happened to your integrity? You're an insult to the evil dragon race. The metal-devouring evil dragon was infuriated. Although it only had half its body now, its sharp claws extended. Its claws looked like 4 golden hooks slamming toward Long Chen. Lightning flashed. Long Chen used the celestial lightning body blink to dodge this attack. As a result, its sharp claw landed against the wall, and this incredibly tough wall was cut through like it was tofu. Its sharp claws began to fly through the air as quick as lightning. Long Chen repeatedly dodged. Each time, those claws nearly struck him. It was incredibly dangerous as he weaved through the air. Just as it was crazily attacking Long Chen, Evil Moon suddenly slashed onto its neck, landing right on a joint. Its head came crashing down. Even once its head fell to the ground, its skeleton, which had now been split into 3 portions, suddenly began to move. All 3 segments reconnected. Long Chen, splash some of your essence blood onto its bones. Don't let it merge, shouted Evil Moon as it attacked again, sending the head flying. Long Chen didn't tarry. He flashed toward its neck and spat out a mouthful of blood. It landed on the bone. Long Chen was surprised to find that when his essence blood landed on its bones, its original golden color rapidly transformed into a white color. His essence blood contained true dragon essence blood. That was an essence blood that suppressed all other dragons, including their dragon bloodlines. The metal-devouring evil dragon still had a bit of its essence blood in its skeleton, but when it encountered true dragon essence blood, it was instantly suppressed. It wasn't even able to unleash its divine abilities. Long Chen repeatedly flashed through the air, spitting out blood on the segments of the metal-devouring evil dragon skeleton. It was no longer able to reconnect its body. Bastards, you can all die. The metal-devouring evil dragon's body seemed to have been sealed, leaving behind only its head. At this moment, it opened its mouth, and 72 sharp golden teeth stabbed toward Evil Moon like 72 swords. Boom! Evil Moon was sent flying by one of the teeth. The metal-devouring evil dragon's teeth were its toughest weapon. Evil Moon was actually unable to block them. With Evil Moon sent flying, another one of those teeth pierced toward Long Chen. It was fast, and there was nowhere for him to run. Little heaven! Long Chen shouted, and the heaven-flipping seal appeared before him. It transformed into a giant divine seal that slammed forward. Boom! The entire underground world shuddered. The heaven-flipping seal was sent flying by the 72 golden dragon teeth, smashing into Long Chen's body. Long Chen coughed up blood. He felt like his entire body was about to collapse. These dragon teeth were all incredibly tough. Each one was as heavy as a star. If it hadn't been for the heaven-flipping seal, he'd have definitely died. Long Chen fled. He definitely couldn't allow himself to be struck by this attack again. Just at this moment, Evil Moon stabbed down from the air, inserting itself into the metal-devouring evil dragon's head and nailing it into the ground. Long Chen, get over here. Use a dragon blood seal, shouted Evil Moon. Long Chen immediately appeared beside Evil Moon, and a blood-colored rune appeared on his forehead. This was the seal used to control magical beasts. He didn't quite know what Evil Moon was planning. Evil Moon absorbed the blood-colored rune and sent it into the metal-devouring evil dragon's head. Bastard, my metal-devouring evil dragon race never submits to others. Idiot, who wants you to submit? Black chi suddenly burst out of Evil Moon. The golden head was quickly infected by that black chi. Cracks covered it. Finally, the metal-devouring evil dragon's skull shattered, and a giant crystal core appeared. Long Chen's blood-colored seal was on top of it. I'll absorb its soul essence, and that will conveniently help you subdue these dragon teeth. Those are true treasures. Focus. Using the crystal core as a foundation, try to control the dragon teeth, said Evil Moon. Black chi continued to flow out of Evil Moon. It enveloped the golden crystal core, causing it to start turning black as well. The roaring of the metal-devouring evil dragon could still be heard coming from the crystal core, but it was unable to stop the invasion of the black chi. Its roaring gradually grew quieter. Just at this moment, the 72 golden dragon teeth in the air shuddered. A small blood-colored rune appeared on each of them. There was no need for Evil Moon to remind him. Long Chen formed hand seals, and his spiritual strength was fully activated. It poured into the crystal core, and the blood-colored runes on the 72 golden dragon teeth grew brighter and larger. In the end, every dragon tooth was completely covered in the blood-colored runes. After fully covering the dragon teeth, the blood-colored runes shrank until they left behind a small mark at the bottom of each tooth. Success! Longchen laughed. He waved his hand, and the 72 dragon teeth began to revolve around his body like 72 sharp swords. Haha, finally! These dragon teeth were just like Xiang Yunfei's bone spears. However, the dragon teeth were far stronger. These dragon teeth will be your weapons, so count yourself lucky. If you hadn't possessed dragon blood, there would have been no way for you to subdue them. But then calling you lucky is a bit much. Your luck really is garbage. I ended up underestimating the metal-devouring evil dragon. If I hadn't been hiding my aura from the start, a sudden sneak attack from it would have resulted in us being buried here, said Evil Moon with some apprehension. It had been too dangerous. If Evil Moon hadn't severed the metal-devouring evil dragon's body at the start, causing it to lose a large portion of its combat power, they might have died. If it hadn't been cut apart, the complete metal-devouring evil dragon's power would have definitely been even greater. It wasn't claimed to be unrivaled in close combat for nothing. Don't blame everything on my luck. Wasn't it all because of your own mistake of judgment? However, I won't blame you. As long as the results are good, it's fine, laughed Longchen. He gripped one of the dragon teeth, and it shrank and grew according to his will. It was as cold as ice, a bone-chilling cold. Most importantly, its weight was absolutely shocking. They were even heavier than Evil Moon. Holding them with one hand was a bit too much. No wonder even the heaven-flipping seal with its immense defensive power was unable to block them, muttered Longchen. The heaven-flipping seal was a defensive divine item, and since its item spirit was free to grow and unleash its power, it wasn't limited by Longchen's cultivation base. It could be said to be his strongest defensive tool. However, even it almost failed today. Longchen had almost been killed. The metal-devouring evil dragon's strongest point is its ability to gnaw on precious ores and grow stronger from their essence. That's why their teeth are natural treasures, and they stay with them for a lifetime. Since this metal-devouring evil dragon has reached the death realm, its teeth are definitely much stronger than most half-step divine items. However, without the crystal core, using them will require a great deal of Yuan spirit energy. Fortunately, your Yuan spirit is extremely powerful and capable of using them. You should take some time to nourish them with your soul and erase their vigilance toward you. They still have some remnants of their old master's will, but wiping that out shouldn't be difficult with your abilities, said Evil Moon. Longchen nodded. He lovingly touched these golden dragon teeth for a while longer before putting them into his spiritual space. Once there, he used his spiritual strength to erase the lingering will of the metal-devouring evil dragon. After he was finished with that, he would nourish it, making the teeth feel better toward him. Other than the dragon teeth, he was also excited to have obtained an evil dragon's reverse scale. There was a large amount of evil dragon essence blood within it, and it contained all the energy it had been accumulating to attempt its breakthrough to the samsara realm. Now it had benefited Longchen. The essence blood inside this reverse scale was enough for all the dragon blood warriors to use it. Once they refined the evil dragon essence blood, they would be true dragon blood warriors. You've taken the dragon teeth and reverse scale already, but don't forget the skeletons around. Of course, the metal-devouring evil dragon has sucked away the power of their flesh and crystal cores, so you'll only be able to use them as fertilizer. Before you start tidying up the battlefield, first absorb the metal-devouring evil dragon skeleton into your primal chaos space. I want to absorb its dragon marrow. Just wait, Longchen. I'm going into seclusion, and after I'm done absorbing the dragon marrow, I'll show you my true power, laughed Evil Moon excitedly. This time, Longchen and Evil Moon had both benefited. Longchen had gained the 72 golden dragon teeth, which would become his strongest weapon, while Evil Moon had obtained the metal-devouring evil dragon skeleton. Its goal was its dragon marrow. Long Chen put the metal-devouring evil dragon skeleton into the primal chaos space. He found a secluded place for Evil Moon to calmly absorb it. Once Evil Moon absorbed its dragon essence, this corpse would be useless. Originally, Long Chen had also wanted the dragon claws, but Evil Moon had told him that it wasn't possible. The dragon claws were different from the dragon teeth. The claws didn't possess their own runes, so they weren't very useful. Most importantly, if he took away the dragon claws, the dragon marrow would no longer be complete. Only then did Long Chen learn that the dragon marrow was not just located in its spinal column, but throughout all of its bones. As for its teeth, rather than calling them bones, they were more like solid metal. They were the main tools the metal-devouring evil dragon used to eat its food. They might be priceless treasures to Long Chen, but they were useless to Evil Moon. So the two were taking what they each needed. After handling the metal-devouring evil dragon, Long Chen ran over to the mountain of skeletons. Just as Evil Moon said, they were essentially useless. All their energy had been sucked dry. They could only be used as fertilizer. Long Chen tossed them into the primal chaos space's black soil. Endless life energy filled the primal chaos space. That thick earth essence fruit tree didn't even need Long Chen to urge it on. It grew crazily. It was already several times larger than the original tree he had gotten it from, and it was covered with golden fruit that had already fully matured. The essence inside these fruits was also much greater than the original fruit that he had gathered. As for the world trees, they had already grown to their peak. They were no longer absorbing life energy. The dense life energy in the primal chaos space was condensing into mist. Seeing this, Long Chen was delighted. Based on his previous experience, when this mist reached its peak density, it would condense into divine life elixir. That was something that could instantly heal a person. It was a life-saving treasure. Although Celestials and Empyreans were capable of borrowing heavenly Tao energy to heal, it wasn't as fast as the divine life elixir, and it also used up more energy. After recovering a few times, they might have used up so much spiritual yuan that their combat power would drop. Seeing this scene in the primal chaos space, Long Chen thought that he would only need a few 12th-rank magical beast corpses to start condensing the divine life elixir. After cleaning up the battlefield, Long Chen looked through every corner of this space. He wanted to see if there were any other precious natural treasures in the metal-devouring evil dragon's lair. However, he didn't find anything. Only then did Long Chen return along his original path. He quickly saw the light of the outside world. When he exited the cave, he took a deep breath of fresh air. Although he hadn't spent that much time in the metal-devouring evil dragon's cave, the attack of its dragon teeth had almost taken his life. After brushing past death, he was refreshed by the sunlight. Just thinking about how close it had been made him apprehensive. The yin-yang world was truly dangerous. Just as Long Chen was stretching his waist, a golden cauldron appeared in the air, and divine light flowed out of it, enveloping Long Chen. Long Chen, hand over the treasures you got, and I can give you a quick death. A figure appeared on top of the cauldron, looking arrogantly down at Long Chen. You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.